All right, guys, welcome back to the 24 Down podcast. We are here. This is episode 2 of the flag burning saga, if you will. And I'm joined today by two of the admins, Francis and Buddha. Guys, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Good, good.
So, this episode is going to be a little bit different because we're going to piece together some different interviews, hear some insight from a lot of different people involved in the whole flag burning saga. So I wanted to just kind of make it special and get as many people's input as possible. Um, but what do you? I guess like quick thoughts. What do you guys think about the whole thing?
It was the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of Valley Forge. That's what I got to say. no. No, I mean it is what it is at that point. We were so invested in something, and I can't say I'd go back and change the way we reacted, but I mean, I for one am kind of happy it happened because it brought us closer together for us group, and then it opened up the doors for other people too. So
For sure. No, yeah.
I think at the time it was really big. It was something really big. After hearing, stories, and we'll hear a lot of stories about what that flag actually meant to Hat, what that flag meant to, the Brazilian twins and everything. Like that flag meant a lot. And yes, it's yes, you could say it's just a flag. You could say that. Anyone can say that. It's just material. However, flags and signs and logos, they represent something. They represent something bigger. So when someone takes our flag and takes our logo and does something like that, to us, we take it as, no, this is not just a prank. You're trying to take us down. And when you try to take us down, we're going to take you down. And thank God nothing crazy happened back then, but that we were ready to go. More than half of us were ready to go and do whatever it took to get back at the other people. And then, going further, and we'll talk about it, like in the MySpace, page and everything, like that went even deeper, and we couldn't believe how deep that was going. And that got us even, it was big. We made it bigger than it really was. And now hindsight, 15 years after, we see, yeah, that really made us upset. But at the same time, how important is it? And we'll get to see that.
I think one of the cool things about part one of this was hearing Phil and Al's side, which is kind of almost everybody else involved on their end. It was like their side too, and it's so interesting to me that majority of those guys like didn't mean it harmful at all. It was just an innocent prank. They were bored, and we took it so personal. Now there were some people that I think they meant it personal, but we took it personal from everybody. And so I think it was really good to hear their side. I think that shared some clarity and kind of brought us all, to a little bit more of an understanding from some of the people on the other side of things. But you hit the head on the nail, Buddha. Like at the time, man, it felt big. I think Francis, you were the first one, I believe, because you came through waking everybody up, right?
yeah, I can still remember it. I had that crappy laptop, one of those first gen, the one that Colleen still uses. Um, but I remember getting a MySpace friend request because I was up earlier than everyone. I remember getting a friend request from like the name of it, which was like 24 Down or something silly like that. I forget. And it had one video on it, no post or anything out. And I started the video, and I remember it started playing "We Are the Champions" and having like started the montage as it does, as it begins. And I was like, I paused it. I didn't even get past that point. I paused it and I was like, I was hype. I was like, yo, someone made a fan page for 24 Down. So then I brought it over to 117. I think a lot of people were there at the time. And I brought it in. And I told everyone to gather around. I was like, this is awesome. Someone made like a highlight video. And I pressed play to start it over. And like 30, 60 seconds in, it cuts out. And then you see the flag burning. And I was like, I swear to God, I had no idea that this was on there like that. And we all just were like, what is this? Like, and so it turned out to be something different than we intended or what I initially thought. But yeah, I was one of the original discoverers of the friend request from them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And then going back to, hearing from I believe Alex had his own podcast, right? And then the flag burning podcast part 1, like, if it wasn't for hearing from them, and it wasn't even a conversation that I had with them, it was a conversation that you had with them, and even just hearing them out and hearing them just talk through it, I have to say, if I didn't have those, I would come into this podcast a little more fiery because I still held a grudge against them. And it's pretty much because we never talked it out. We never talked to each other and saw why they did what they did. And so after hearing them, I really softened and I was like, you know what, this is stupid to keep a grudge, towards someone, maybe except for Josh Davies, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we can hop right into things. We're gonna all listen in right now to a little interview that I had with our RD at the time, Mark Talesha. So I hope everybody enjoys this, and we will let this play. All right, so now for this portion here, I'm sitting with Mark Talesha, our RD at the time of the flag burning event. And I thought it'd be really interesting to get some perspective from his end of things. It's oftentimes we think of things on our end as students, as people that held the flag and whatever, but we don't always think of the leadership and what they may or may not have thought and gone through. So I thought it was really important to bring you on, Mark, and thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any where you want to start. I know you want to get to a few different things. I guess maybe the most basic thing to start off is I guess just give us your feeling of like what you initially felt when this first broke and the video started surfacing. Like, what was your reaction and what did you feel?
Well, I want to back up a little bit because I just want to state like why I'm doing this. Because as I was telling you, when I listened to the podcast, it was so funny. It was like a time machine, and I emotionally was right there again. And I got home and started talking to my wife, and my wife was like, "Why do you care?" I'm like, "This is important. This is big RD stuff." And and so she's like, and I was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna go on the podcast again and talk about it." And she's like, "Why would you do that?" So part of it is I kind of have a purpose of just wanting to clear a couple things.
Sure.
But when I was listening to it, I live in Hershey. I was driving in Harrisburg, and I'm like right in the middle where there's a bunch of traffic, and I was so emotionally hyped that I pulled over the side of the road and typed some notes. So I got them right here.
Nice.
But so you want to go to the beginning, like what I remember?
Yeah, just kind of like give us a quick, like, what did you feel in that moment?
I don't know if someone told me on the weekend.
It happened. It happened.
No, but I don't know if I think they told me on a weekend, so I knew like on a Sunday.
So we went and saw 300 on Friday night, and that's when they took the flag, filmed everything.
And then Saturday, the video came out.
Yeah, the thing came out Saturday morning. My recollection is you knew pretty much right away Saturday because you spent.
Then it would have been Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, you spent a good few hours with us over in 24 Down, looking over the video and things like that. So,
I remember it because I wasn't working that weekend, and my wife was again like, "Why do you care?" So yeah. So I remember Saturday. I think it was Carlos came to me and said that there was something going on. And you guys were like my little babies that, it was like a little chicken wanting to take care of her little eggs. Because I had nothing except for like the apartments that were, null and void of anything on campus happening. And they had married housing, over 24 housing. And so you guys were like 24 was it. And
Sure.
So I remember they came over there, and I think my initial thing was I could tell everyone was super hyped, and I didn't want someone to do something stupid to get in trouble. Like,
Sure.
and so that was definitely my purpose of it all was, chill out. And I remember taking certain people. I think I took Tom and Andrew and a couple other people over and said, listen, and I think I even brought Buddha in and said, listen, I need you to help chill things out so that people don't get pissed and go and do something that they're gonna get in trouble for. Because I could definitely tell everyone was thinking like this was the worst infraction that's ever happened.
And we, as we said, it didn't help that we had all just seen the movie 300, so we were all in that like mentality. All right,
Still never seen that movie. I'm still bitter.
You probably see it on anything now, Mark.
I'm sure I could. But yeah, I remember that, and also I remember someone had my heat's coming on. It's gonna sound like Valley Forge here in a second. Someone had a memory stick, and they had the video, and they had all the screen captures of all the MySpace things. So
Yeah.
we everyone knew what it was, and then but I had the audio, and I remember going in there, and there was like 2 or 3 people around me, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember us listening, and they kept asking me who I thought it was, and I couldn't figure it out at first, and then I just slowed down the video because they just sped it up, and it was like clear as crystal, like it just totally was a normal audio, and that was kind of how things went down. So then I just need everyone to chill out until Monday, because that was when my official work would begin.
Sure.
And I would have to let Brian know, and I would have to talk with Dr. Mortensen, just to kind of let him know what's going on. But I remember my initial thing was that's pretty funny that someone got you guys. But then I was like, man, everyone is about to explode. Like, I think Justin Banks and Nate Kaplan were like, I think they were ready to like take someone's head off.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but like I led a storm of like we stormed upstairs because Todd lived upstairs.
Yes.
He was the one person involved in all of this that lived, and I've said this, like he just had the unfortunate thing of he happened to live in the same building. So he was the closest in proximity. And so when we finally found out everybody that was involved, we knew he lived upstairs. And it was like an immediate thing. As soon as we found out like these people were involved, I just started walking. I was like, I'm going up there, and sure, a bunch of people. And so like as a floor, we went up there and we just start pounding on his door as if we're going to do something. Like, what are we going to do? But like, we just had that adrenaline going. Yeah. So thankfully we didn't do anything that got us in trouble, but I mean, we were very upset. And, I like that you bring up the fact that you initially thought, hey, this is pretty funny that I think, like, these guys got one over on these other guys, but your concern lied more in let's make sure nothing further escalates. Because it's different people took that event different ways. And so that's what I kind of like hearing. What are these different ways that people took this event and everything like that? So it's I like your honesty of being like, yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. And there's people that lived on the floor at the time that I thought were just as mad as I was, or some of the other guys that were like, hey, we thought it was funny too, and so it's weird to know that there were all these different ways people looked at it,
Yeah, there was because once Monday came and I talked with Dr. Mortensen and I talked with Brian, their issue was the audio on the video.
Yes.
Were the words, and they're like, you need to bring these people in just to talk to them and see what's going on. And so Dr. Mortensen, he also thought it was funny, like in terms of, that's just, college thing. But then once the language thing came in there, and I think someone and I knew that some of it was because there was a grudge and that people were upset because I think, well, let's be honest here. If we took a poll of all freshman guys on campus that don't live on 24 down and say, do you
Yeah,
like 24 down or
yeah, we're the enemy for sure.
yeah, you were
Not,
the
not
enemy
even,
for the whole campus because you
not
guys
just
were winning.
yeah, and not just freshmen. I think that was the consensus of anybody that wasn't really involved, and it wasn't. I think more than anything, and I've said this before, looking back on it, we were annoying. Like we really were annoying. Like we didn't meet. We were just proud. We were happy. We were doing our thing, but it comes across super annoying. I get that now, looking back at things.
People don't like happy people.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, well, and there's and then different people measure what success is and what they think a successful college dorm is.
Right.
Because I remember, and I wish Carlos was here because I always kept telling him, like my part of 24 down, my whole thing was just hiring Carlos. That was the thing because there was some tension when I first came in because pretty much the RAs at that time is they got paid was they got free housing and they got free food, and you know how good that food was.
Right.
So and you would get maybe $300, but the RA presence on campus was very low. Like they pretty much just did whatever and just did the minimum that they needed to do, and so it caused a lot of tension. And Carlos has said in his podcast, which I think I've listened to maybe 10 podcasts now, and
Okay.
he was saying that he wanted to be present, and the reason why is because the previous RA, which he's a good guy, like I still see him around and everything else, he was just busy doing other things and wasn't there, and it really wasn't his fault, and it wasn't really even the expectation that you would be there, like
Yeah.
around. Like
He
Carlos probably took it to a whole nother level.
For sure. And so like I personally didn't know the previous RA, but I don't know if you knew, he came on the podcast as well. And they even talked about that, or he said like, yeah, I just wasn't really like all that involved, and yeah, I mean, I 100%, I didn't know him.
Yeah, it wasn't his intention at all. It's just, I think the way it was before, it was just like, do whatever you need to do. Just make sure Henry doesn't have to feel like he wants to quit by
Right.
by damaging too much stuff, and just make sure no one complains to Dr. Meyer, and we're good.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, no, and I think Carlos really, again, I don't know the landscape of Valley Forge prior to my first year, but if I had to guess, Carlos in a way kind of reshaped what the RA was meant to be. He was very involved. He did care. He, you know, wanted to hold people accountable, but also build them up. And I remember with the whole flag burning thing, like it, from my recollection, it really upset him, probably not in a way of like, oh, like I'm hurt by this, but he saw that like some of us were hurt by this.
Mhm.
And we were like, the students that he's overseeing. So like he took that personally then in that way. But yeah, so I kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Oh, that's fine. But yeah, so I mean, so I remember it, and I might go to my notes, but I remember the audio just was super super clear, and so
Yeah.
like, and I know that some of you knew it because you were in my office when I did it. I had like the original tablet PC, motion computer. It was a sweet setup. Um, and so we had that. So Monday, they said, now you need to bring some people in. I did not want to bring everybody in because I felt like sometimes I just felt like someone might get in trouble when I just wanted trying to, like, everyone's cool, no one's gonna be getting mad, everything's settled down. And but I did need to bring some people in just to say, were you a part of it? And just, so they could say it. Because back then they used to have this little form, and it was like a witness statement. And I hated that. And now in my job, I was working with teenagers, and they have like the same form here. And it's like, so what did you see? And it's like, I saw this guy smoking around the corner, and it just always drove me crazy, because it's like, you get pencil and paper, like we can't even get our stories straight after sitting down, and you're sitting in front of somebody, and you're afraid you're going to get fined, or you're going to get removed from school possibly, and everyone always is freaking out. So I do remember, I remember pulling in a bunch of the guys that were involved in the video and just asking. And I said this before, like, my thing is, I'm not going to call you on the table and get you in trouble unless everything's clear as day. And my life, I have two great friends of mine that got put in prison for more than 10 years. And I guarantee you my level of guilt was not higher than what theirs were. And their juror was like, I was really certain. So I know I talked to all the guys, and I told them what I had. I remember listening to this podcast, and one of my notes was like that, Talesha had this, the Talesha BS, saying I had the video, and that they, I think Phil said he would just put his hand on the Bible and swear that I said Dan DeRozers was on the job. And that would never happen. Because I don't know if any of you, I don't know even if I talked about this, but I used to have a recording studio and a small record label. And so I actually would get recordings from people that were going to record at Valley Forge, and they would end up recording with me in Connecticut instead. And then I got two bands from my studio that actually ended up, making it pretty big and getting on some labels and stuff like that. So I always felt like I was much better on audio than Dan DeRozers ever was. And so me and Dan actually used to collaborate and do stuff. And I always did the audio, and I would do the recording a lot of times. So I did not need Dan DeRozers.
So I guess I kind of want to get into this really quick, because I think, and I want to see if I can help piece this thing along a little bit. So there was, because I actually talked to Phil a little bit about this too. And I think kind of what I'm gathering, and maybe you can help me piece this along, is that there was, so 100% you took the video, you took the audio from the video, and you unmasked it, and you could hear basically clear as day. And there's no, like, I remember that. And after talking to Phil, like, he was on, and this is all probably like, this person said this to this person to said this. It's like the telephone game. From what he remembered hearing, and again, maybe not directly from you, but he remembered hearing that you had taken the video and somehow, because you remember how their faces were blurred out, and unmasked the video to see their faces. And that's why he was like, oh, that's BS. Like, there's no way.
I didn't do that. No, all I did is I took the file, and I had VLC player, which is, I still use that to this day. Right. And all I did was just slow down the playback so that it would lower the pitch of the voice. And that's all I did. So I didn't even have to separate the audio.
So when I was talking to Phil about this, he was bringing it up because in their group of people that were involved in this, they were talking about, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to say? That kind of thing like that. And he's for sure that whoever said it, somebody along the lines, and I don't think it would have been you directly, but somebody along the lines let them know that you had gotten the video, you claimed you'd gotten the video and took the blur out and you could see their faces. So that's what they believed what was being said. So now they're sitting in their group of friends, or everybody involved, and they're telling Davies, yeah, this is BS. And I think that's where that, like, the BS things come from, is because it's BS that he said he could take the video, which was not what you said at all, but that's what they had heard. Again, not directly from you, but that's what they had heard. So, like, there's so much, like, that's what I guess one of the reasons, yeah, we're still talking about this story 15 years later is because there are so many like,
so immature.
yes, and there's so many like variables to it and everything like that. But I think that's a big part of what it stems from is that they had heard from whoever that you had claimed to have unblurred the video, which is not what you said. Now you probably said, "Hey, I took the audio and blah blah blah," and somebody heard that, and then they went and told somebody, "Oh my god, like he debugged the video," and so then it just turns into, oh yeah, like it goes from you doing what you did to turning into, oh, he was able to take the blur off their faces, which is not true, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the disconnect is like what you actually did, what they heard that you did, and so on and so
Oh,
forth.
I could have hit the enhance button like they do in the TV shows, and then it could have
Right,
just
there you go.
taken the blur right out. Well, worked perfectly off the screw off in the corner. Yeah, I mean that could make sense. But I remember going in there because what happened is someone lied to me, and I had to go and talk to my supervisor, and they're like, that's a whole different thing. And so I remember leaving there, and I was like, how do I get this kid out of getting in trouble? And so I told him I had it, and I know for sure I told Todd. I don't know if I told other people. I was like, I have this. This is as clear as you can be. Can you just tell him I got it? Because if he would just have said, you know, yeah, it was me, I don't even think he would have gotten a fine. It would have been like a meaningful conversation with the RD,
Sure.
and just on language, and just make sure you stay safe and don't get in a fight with somebody. So I think that was my whole gist of trying to let them know, was just trying to get people out of trouble, because I definitely went out of my way multiple times, because it's like, man, I don't want someone to have, I'm giving you a $12,000 mistake.
Yeah.
It might be, it's a tiny mistake, but it's going to end up costing them $12,000, and I don't like that. And
If
so
if
I definitely go out of the way.
if I'm being completely honest, myself, like in that moment, I wanted that to be a $12,000 mistake. Like
I know.
absolutely, but being so separated from it now, being just slightly more mature than I was at the time, I can look at a big picture and be like, that would be ridiculous for somebody to get kicked out, like after paying that much money to get kicked out of school for such a minimal thing. And so it is crazy, and I think that's another part of the reason I wanted to have you on, because I want people on their side of things to understand, who you really are, and at your heart, like, you don't want people to get in trouble, and you had your best interest. Did You said you pulled a few people in to talk to him and stuff like that? Was everybody else kind of like, from your recollection, was everybody else kind of like, yeah, I was a part of it, and it was just the fact that the one guy was like, nope, I didn't do anything?
Yeah, that was the deal, because it was obvious, because the MySpace, friend request, like the
Yeah.
second they knew that, I mean, it's like you're red-handed,
Yes.
and it's a mistake on everyone's part, because no one had to hit accept.
Right. Right. Well, and they probably weren't thinking that it would even get to that point, because again,
No.
in reality, we're talking about a very, very, like, when you compare it to other college pranks, like that you see in like big state schools, where you got this school going to the other rival school.
Would you like to know two of the pranks I did in college?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one, I'm kind of a loud person, and so I lived on a dorm for one semester in Minneapolis, and then I went and got an apartment off campus. And the RA that they hired on the floor after I got there, my RA, when I lived there, I saw him twice. I saw him when I came in, I saw him when I left. I don't think I ever saw him any other time. And this guy came in there, and he was like, we're gonna have a quiet floor. we're going to be really studious. And I was a straight A student, but no one knew it. And he's like, we're going to be studious. So I was in there. We played video games like nonstop. And we play like NBA Jam. And if you were the champion of it, you get to wear a certain hat. And that thing was like gold. And he came in to me and told me that I wasn't allowed on the dorm floor anymore because I'm too loud. And I'm like, my friends are here. And he kept doing it all the time. So one time I left at about 2 a.m. and he was in his room with the door locked. And I took instant glue and squirted it into his deadbolt. He had a bathroom in there and everything else. So I knew he didn't have to pee in a bottle or anything like that. But they had to drill him out like a couple hours later after he couldn't get out. And he had to call on the rotary phone. So that was pretty good. And then we had a skyway. So it was an enclosed sidewalk they have in Minneapolis. They're really cool. So all the girls went to chapel through one skyway. So we had someone got a sign and it said heifer crossing. And they had it on the road. And so me and my friends unscrewed it from the road sign. And we threw a sock with a bunch of batteries over it. And then we put up the heifer crossing to where it was facing towards the girls and then tied it up. So then when they walked by chapel, they saw it where it said heifer crossing. So that was pretty funny. I enjoyed those things. And I would have gotten in trouble. I probably would have gotten kicked out if they knew it was me that super glued him in the room, because I never thought, God forbid if there was a fire.
Sure.
And we're 4 stories up in the air. But man, I would really hated that guy. His name was Ryan, by the way. So I don't think, I just didn't see that as being a major, no one was getting hurt.
Right. And
no one ever got in trouble. It wasn't about, hey, we're going to find you and add a rule to the rule book.
Right.
It was just is everyone good? Because I knew people were upset, and part of the reason why it was done was because people were mad, or jealous or whatever. And so it was pretty funny to me that, I saw it. And at first I remember watching it, and I remember I can't laugh, because imagine if I laughed with all of you guys watch me watch it for the first time.
Yeah.
I would have been toast.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it
but
is.
I definitely got my pissed off level was definitely at a 9.
Yeah.
And it was all about just because Josh was the freshman.
Yeah.
And I felt like he wasn't a friend before and he wasn't a friend after. And that's what pissed me off. It was and they can, I remember hearing them, talking in the podcast, and that might be their perception, but, they have to see it from my side too. It's I feel like this kid got in trouble with, someone should have known not to put that audio in that way. Probably would have actually, if they edited it a little bit better, Josh wouldn't have gotten in trouble at all.
Sure.
And I feel like some people could have helped him just to make a better decision. And everybody in terms of just that.
I guess at the same point though, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't think their intention was, let's leave this in case he gets in trouble. It was
no.
Hey, we did this thing. We got the video. Let's get this out right away. And it was just a quick, let's do this quick. And it wasn't let's think about okay, what if we take this portion of the audio out, or what if we make this different? The other thing too is so with, and we've brought this up a few times with what I guess part of what's crazy to me about a big part of this experience is there was literally, of the 6 or 7 guys involved, there was only 2 of them that did it out of spite.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even the group of guys that even pulled it all off.
Right. And so I understand where you're coming from, saying like, you feel bad for Josh because he was not a friend before, nor was he after, or anything like that. But at the same time, like that, he was the one that drove a good chunk of that. And I will say this, I've had almost like maybe this will make you feel a little bit better. I've had a little bit of an awakening today, thinking, just, reflecting on this whole thing. And so somebody like him, and there's a few other examples that I've talked at in the history of this podcast of just different students that I've held these grudges for this many years. And I look back and I'm like, well, why? I'm going to be 37 in a few weeks. Like, why am I sitting here still holding a grudge from when I was in my early 20s against another person that was also in their early 20s or even younger? And so I say all that to say, like, yes, I do think that he should be held responsible to an extent, because it was definitely out of spite. But at the same time, it shouldn't. I completely have a different view, and I don't think that he should have got the backlash he got. I feel bad that he had to go through what he did go through. So I don't know.
And
It's kind of
how brave do you have to be to do what he did? Like,
sure.
I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like he should have gotten props, but instead it's like he's the one left holding the bag at the end.
Right. Well, and again, like, I mean, still at the end of the day, like, he had the choice to be honest and chose not to.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
but again, he at the time he's 18, 19 years old. Like, I
Oh, yeah.
probably, if I was in the same exact position, same circumstances, I might have done the same thing. I might have like lied about it too, because it's just a circumstance of how you are, like your age and different scenarios that are going on. So I don't hold anything ill will towards him at all. Like, completely forgiven in my book. Um, I've already like dealt with almost the rest of the guys involved. And like, some of them, the Anderson brothers, like I said, I mean, they're two of my best friends. Who would have thought, like, at the time I was so pissed and I wanted the worst for those guys. And here's two guys that travel, 15 plus hours to come to my wedding 10 years, 12 years later, so it is cool. And I think that's a big part of this, why I wanted to revisit this whole flag thing, was because I wanted whatever little bits of healing are still left untouched, maybe to be able to fix that and be able to call out. Like, I love the fact that you can sit there and be like, I felt bad that they were saying, well, this is Mark BSing. I like that you're being honest, because you need the honesty to be able to get to the end result of being able to maybe heal something or maybe come to an understanding. So I think, just all in all, I love piecing this back together. I love reliving this in a different perspective when I'm not so heated and I want everybody gone, So I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
and I'm glad I got to listen to the podcast like 10 days ago,
Yeah.
and now and then be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But because that was a good podcast with the Andersons. Because I was thinking, I youth pastored and did a bunch of stuff before. Hold on, phone call.
You're fine.
But I did a lot of stuff, and it's always was crazy to me how people would be like, like the Andersons in their freshmen when they had their drama thing and comedy
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
People love taking other people's stuff. Like, it happened to me in Florida when I did outreach to the projects and everything else. A guy just couldn't wait until I wasn't there so that he could kind of step up. And within 3 weeks, he was gone. Like, he never wanted to touch it ever again, because it was just
Sure.
way much work than he wanted and stuff. So, plus I want to say, I forgot, I had one more thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Anderson brothers said, these was like, yeah, 24 down, it's just so great for community. I was like, if it was so great for community, why did everyone leave that place? It was dirt. You guys made it. You guys did awesome. You made me proud.
Well, I mean, we like I said before, like I know as a floor, at least for that era of that, when you were around, I know as a floor, we all really appreciated you, felt like you always had our back, felt like we could talk to you about stuff and you would listen with an open ear that some of the other leadership within the school maybe wouldn't, so.
Oh, I was the great confessor.
Yeah.
I seriously, like, I think probably 70%, 75% of the times the girls had to come in to talk, they would end up talking to me first. So then I could go over to the other RDs. It was insane.
Well, is there anything else you want to touch on here before we uh, close this portion of the episode out?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, I
Oh,
appreciate.
and I just want to say my lighting is a lot better than yours.
Well, I do have a virtual background. Does that?
Well, I have mine's out of focus blur.
Well, I guess I got to come to you with my tech issues then.
Yeah, I'll just get a light box.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you coming on and kind of reliving things a little bit, helping us all remember this. And again, my true hope is really that everybody can just kind of come through this and be even closer and laugh about it, because now we can all laugh about it. I didn't want to laugh about it then, but we can laugh about it now. So,
well, I laugh whenever I get nervous, so I probably laugh back then too. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Mark.
yeah, no problem.
So that was Talesha's input on everything, and he brings up some interesting things. I think it's one of the things that I guess caught me off guard a little bit, not in a negative way. It was his comment on how certain people in student life, they thought it was funny too at first. And it kind of shows, to me, it shows like the mentality that we had, that we couldn't see it as, oh, this is just a joke, because it was so personal. Like, so looking from the outside, probably to everybody else, like not involved on campus, they probably were like, hey, that's kind of a funny prank too. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, when I first heard him say that, like he heard about it from one of us or someone, and he thought it, like his first reaction was to laugh, like it was funny. So like to me that caught me off guard because like I was still in the mentality of 15 years ago. Well, when it happened, if we heard that someone thought it was funny, like they would be on our bad list. They'd be like the ones would be like, that's not funny, like get off our floor type deal. But like objectively speaking, now looking back, it was kind of funny. So, but it got me thinking because the video like itself was kind of well done. It was for short notice and stuff, and they did it overnight. Um, but one reason I think that I didn't think it was funny was the fire. Like not the fire itself, but it at some extent has intimidation. So like if they took it and recorded it and then like said we have your flag, and it would seem a little more pranky. But when you see the fire and it got real big, it just started to feel a little more real. And I know that they didn't have malicious intent at all. I know that now, and I'm good friends with them. But it's hard to feel like they didn't have malicious intent when seeing that fire. Because if it was anything less than that, you might be like, oh, it was just a prank. But when you see the fire, it kind of connotates some sort of maliciousness.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, when I heard that they thought it was humorous, I was like, oh man, I was a little offended by that. But yeah, definitely, you take a step back and you take like 15 years apart from it, and then you're like, yeah, you know what? It kind of is humorous at this point, and it's good that now Phil and Alex are part of the group and part of the family and stuff, and it's not like we have anything against them, but there still are guys out there, like I said, Josh Davies and Dela Cruz. Who Dela Cruz was weird because I don't know why he would be involved in something like that. I mean, when I think about people that were on the basketball team, and I believe he was on the basketball team, um, yeah, he was at one time, I think. But
Okay.
I think if I'm thinking of the right guy, I think he was on like some sports teams. And so when I thought of the sports teams people, like I would be the athletes, I was like, oh, they're on like a higher level. They don't want to, even get involved in stuff like this. So, and you think of Josh Davies, like, I'll tell you what, man, I don't know if this was before or after, because I'm not exactly sure when this all happened, and you can remind us, but like, I remember playing football games against Josh Davies, and he was a chubby kid, I was a chubby kid, so we were both on the line. I would push this kid into the dirt, not because I didn't like him, but because that's what we did as 24 down. We just dominated. We conquered the field. So I would always be going up against him. So it was either in the Patriot Bowl, it was whatever, and he would tell me like to calm down, be like, yo, if you want someone to calm down, get off the field. So we were jerks, bro. We definitely were jerks. And I didn't think of myself as a jerk. Like Nate was a jerk and everything, but I didn't think I was a jerk. But we were jerkish. We were kind of prideful. We were proud about ourselves, but really we could back it up. And so I think that's what Josh Davies really had, where he really wanted to get back at us because we got at him so much. And at the time, we either had a rivalry against 4 down or 24 up, and so it was both of those that we were always going against, and we would just always beat them. And so he wanted to beat us, I guess. But going on to the humorous part, yeah, man, definitely is funny now. Definitely was well done over a night. They put that together pretty good. But yeah, I always thought that, Talesha wanted to get these guys, because I remember Carlos, he wanted to get these guys. He wanted to get them kicked out and everything. And when I heard that, most of them were not kicked out because of this, I actually felt good about that. But at the time, I wanted them all to be kicked out because of this. But now I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be kicked out because of a prank. You shouldn't even be kicked out because of language. But you know what? I'm not sure when it was said, but actually, I'll comment on this later because I believe it's said later. So something about Josh Davies being kicked out. So I'll wait on that.
Okay. Yeah. Ultimately, the thing with Mark that I appreciate about him is that you can really still hear that, despite everything that happened, like he still has a heart for Josh Davies, and in a way, to a fault, I think that he gives him too much leeway at times, and that's kind of one of the things I was trying to tell Mark is that, first and foremost, like, I forgive the kid. I have no ill will towards him, but like, you can't just say that he was innocent in this. Like, he was one of 2 people that really fueled the hatred and the reason for doing this. And De La Cruz is the other one. And we talked about that too at some point, how he was dating a girl that was kind of hanging out with 24 down after they broke up. And so I think that fueled his fire and stuff like that. But Buddha, you're right. I mean, we were kind of, like, not intentionally, but we were kind of jerks. And it's easy to be cocky when you are just dominating at things. It's also easy to be cocky when you have a floor that's as close as we were, and you look at the rest of the campus and they didn't have that. They just didn't have that as a whole entire floor. They had that in small groups, small friendship groups that were just as close, but spanning a whole entire floor, like, they didn't have that, and we did. And so it was easy for us to just kind of be cocky and whatnot. And lastly here, we'll get into the next one. But the last thing I want to say is the whole idea of it being funny and everything. I guess, like, if we were to reverse the roles and say we're not involved at all, and this group's, like, let's say Bongiorno has a flag and they're waving around and stuff, and these guys come and steal Bongiorno's flag and burn it and stuff like that. Like, for us, we're like, all right, it's kind of funny because, like, we're not involved. So it's you almost have to take yourself out of the scenario, the situation, to, like, see it for what it really is. But again, that's kind of what this podcast is about, is putting yourself in their shoes to hear their side. Now, hopefully they can put themselves in our shoes to hear our side. So there's an understanding between both, and it allows for continued growth and healing.
Let's put this into perspective, because you just brought something to my memory, right? Okay, we're talking about a flag that, how much do you think it cost to put it together?
I mean,
$10.
if that.
Yeah, because probably the poll was from Henry, and he didn't know.
I think it was for a broom.
We actually, we'll get into that here in a little bit, but we actually bought the broom from Kmart.
Okay.
I don't remember where the sheet came from. Maybe Kmart as well, and then probably a $1 or $2 can of black spray paint. So I mean, a Kmart broom's got to be $5 tops, especially 15 years ago. A dollar or two for a can of spray paint, and maybe a dollar or two for a sheet. So yeah, you're talking $10 or less.
Okay, so we're talking about a $10 flag, right? So you brought up Bongiorno. We actually stole something from them that was way more money, probably over $100, and that was a Christmas tree. I have no idea where we put that thing, but we took it from them during Christmas time, like the Grinch, and sang and recorded it. And we never put it on the internet, though. That's the thing. So they never knew where it went, or where who did it. So we actually did something even worse. But we didn't publicize it. So that's the thing. They publicized it. They wanted it to be known. That's the problem that happened with them. But I guess they were looking at it as like an artistic kind of thing to put out there. But really, man, we've done probably worse things than them. Not probably, we did. And we did it as a prank. We didn't make it personal. I think we took it from them because we just thought they were bougie and they had a tree. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the difference to me between what we did to them and they did to us is they're not 24 down, and I don't say that to be cocky, but like we had like such a good bond that like anything that was against us, felt like an attack. I wouldn't even be surprised if we had taken that Christmas tree and nobody even noticed it was gone, because like no one hangs out in the hallways where it was. No one, like someone was probably like, well, I guess it was time to take it down, especially considering I think Matt Baldwin was involved and he was the RA at the time in Bongiorno. So like,
I think the only way they definitely knew that it happened was because we used the elevator, and I remember there just being like ornaments scattered, like it was like a trail of like where we took it. To me, I guess the difference for me, I guess, is I'm not even sure if that was a Bongiorno the Floors tree. I think that was Valley Forge saying, "Oh, here's some more decoration for our nice little thing," and we just took. I don't remember what we did with it either, but that's a great story that we should get into at some point on the 24 Down podcast. The heist of the Bongiorno Christmas tree.
I don't even remember being scared. We just had so much confidence because we were with each other, and we took that thing. We left the trail. We didn't even run. It was hilarious.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that the tree probably did not mean much to anybody. If it did, I apologize. The flag definitely meant something to a lot of us. And so we're going to go into this little segment here where I talk to the Brazilian twins, and you guys are going to hear specifically why the flag meant so much to me, and then kind of what the Brazilians think in general as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a listen to that right now. So for this next little segment here, it was personally for me, it was really important to bring these two guests on. I'm joined by none other than 24 Down Zone Brazilian twins. How's it going, guys?
We're in jail. This is like we're in jail, baby. We're about to go down. Come on. Check 2-4 down. 2-4 down. Hey, come burn this flag down. Huh? Come on. Come burn this flag down. Catch me outside. How about that? Catch me outside. All right, I got it out.
We're just kidding. Love you. 2-4 down, baby.
We still love you. Yeah, we love you.
So no, I love the energy, and it's funny because obviously now years separated from the event, like we're doing this with this energy and kind of joking around, but in reality, that is very similar to how it was. We were heated. We were absolutely heated.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember at that point, that's when Junior and I were roommates, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brother, especially when you were talking about the MySpace and looking at the laptop and then looking at Josh Davis's account on MySpace, thing who he got friend. That was like a aha moment. I had forgotten all about that, and it came back to me if I was in that room again. We were all around the computer. Man, so many memories.
Yeah, I remember like vaguely remember, a Saturday morning and all of a sudden there's like a frantic knock on our door and Junior and I are kind of like, what's going on? Who's knocking at our door so early in the morning? We open it and I know Francis was for sure there. I don't know if Francis had already told you yet, Mike, and if you were there too.
Yeah, I remember being there.
So and like I got to show you guys this video. Look at this, and like, and then it just like, I mean, it just steamrolled after that.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy, man.
I guess I'm curious to know your guys' just thoughts on the whole thing. I have a side of the story that I want to share specifically with you guys on here. I could do that first if you guys want, or if you guys want to kind of give your side, that's fine too. But like I know me personally, like my side, I don't know if that many people really fully understand everything, and so I wanted to. That was why it's really important for me to get you guys both on here. But it's up to you guys if you want to share yours, or you want me to start off with mine.
No, why don't you start off with yours, and then we can piggyback off of it. But before you do that, I want to say 2-4 down, 2-4 down, 2-4 down.
So I love that flag. What is this? Hold on, before I like get into my story, like Mikey, if you're listening, Mikey legit made a 24 down mini flag.
Right, baby. Can't burn this one down.
It's his baby's crib sheet. You took it out.
Actually, it's from my the seminary I graduated from, which I'm sorry. They sent me like a hand towel with the logo on it, and so I wrote 2-4 down on it, and then it's my broomstick. So it's still attached to it.
So all right, I'm gonna try and give some like a little bit of background, and I'm gonna do my best to like stay composed with all of this. But prior to coming to Valley Forge, I'm gonna just set the stage a little bit for everybody. So I'm not gonna sit here and like give you guys like this sad story of like, oh, I didn't have a lot of friends or anything like that. Like I had friends and everything like that growing up, but I didn't have like this close bond. In high school it was a very small high school that I went to. We had 33 kids in our graduating class. And so I was friends with everybody, but I was never like, I was kind of like the outcast friend of everybody, like I never felt fully accepted. And maybe that was like my own personal thing. I don't know, whatever. The other thing is I grew up, I have two sisters. I have an older sister and a younger sister. So I never had a brother or anything like that. And I always was like, man, like how cool would it be to like have a brother? So knowing that little bit of history of me personally. So now fast forward to college, and I come to college. First two people I meet are Mikey and Juge. And we instantly, like the three of us just clicked. We just clicked so quickly. We shared some of the same interests. We all love soccer, but we had different things. Like we didn't like the same style of music, there's different things, but for what it was, we just clicked. And I remember like that initial feeling of like, wow, this is like kind of what it must feel like to have a brother. And so you guys literally like very, very early on became my actual brothers. So we start like, we're brand new to the school, and we start seeing like this bond that 24 Down has. And we're like, well, this is really cool. Like we're living on this floor, but we're not exactly a part of this floor yet because we're new. And we wanted to be a part of this floor. We were like, we want to do what we can do to be a part of this floor, contribute in any way, but like we want to be a part of this as well. And I don't remember what the event was exactly. I don't know if it was an intramural game. I don't know what it was, but we went, actually, like, I wish I had a picture of it now. Maybe I'll post this at some point. The 24 Down flag that got burned technically was not the original 24 Down flag. I don't know if you guys remember this. I remember the original. Yep, the original flag was you guys had a Brazil flag, and then there was this little like it looked like a highway sign.
Right.
It said 24, and it was hanging up. It was like poster board kind of thing. It was hanging up on the wall. And so we took this 24, put it like taped it onto the Brazilian flag, and we brought it to this event. Again, I don't remember exactly what it was, but the three of us stood in the balcony. I remember I like wrote 24 down all over my arm.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And so like
White
we
pale
went,
skin.
yeah. So we went as this was like our way of showing the floor, hey, like we want to be a part of this as well. And I can't remember too much more other than like we felt very accepted immediately. A lot of the guys that were on the floor that were like, you know, big members of the floor, I remember they were kind of like looking up at the three of us like, these guys are crazy, but like, hey, they're with us, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, the flag, the original flag with the Brazil and taped on sign obviously didn't work that well because the sign kept falling off with the tape, you know?
Yeah.
And so the three of us, and I don't know how many people know this, but the three of us were actually the ones that made the flag that ended up getting burned.
Yeah.
I don't remember what did we just rip off one of our sheets? That part I don't remember. But I think I kind of remember going to Kmart and buying
I remember going to Kmart. Yep, that's what I remember too.
So we went to Kmart, we bought a broom for the handle. Maybe we just bought some sheets, some cheap sheets of something like that. And maybe a can of spray paint. I don't remember. But the three of us like made this flag. And from there, like that flag was brought everywhere, probably 99% of the time by one of the three of us. Like that was our flag. So I guess for me personally, that flag, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but like for instance, let's just say Nate Campton made the flag, and the flag was there before we got there, and it was just part of it, whatever. The flag gets burned. Honestly, I probably don't care as much. I care, but I probably don't care as much.
Yeah.
But like that flag, it was more than just a flag to me. It was a symbol of the three of us and like that bond that we had, and that brother that I've, you know, always wanted to have. It was a symbol of that. B, it was a symbol of us extending like a branch to the 24 Down family to be like, hey, we want to be a part of this, and them reciprocating and be like, hey, we accept you guys. Like, as silly as that sounds, like that flag was a symbol to me of those things. So that's, to me, that's why like when it happened, I understand that like it was a prank, you know, nowadays I understand it was a prank. I don't think that those guys intended to be like, let me take the symbol of what means so much to, like, they didn't know. It was just a prank. Yeah. But that's why, me personally, that's why I took it the way that I did. On the normal podcast, I've been starting to ask this question a lot, where if you could take one piece of 24 Down, whether it's a brick or ceiling tile or whatever, you know, what would it be? Had that flag never been burned, absolutely 100%, that's the one piece of like 24 Down that I would love to like have. And I'm not trying to like make Phil and Alex and the guys feel bad for doing it.
No, make them feel bad, bro.
But like, I don't know. I think it felt, I know it wasn't, but it felt like more of a personal attack towards the three of us, because it was, at least in my book, that was a symbol of the brotherhood that we had, also the brotherhood that 24 Down had, them accepting us reaching out to them. So that's kind of like my thing that I wanted to at least share. So
yeah,
brother. No, I would agree too, because I mean, there was so much pride in that flag. I mean, like you said, it really united us. I mean, we all came from pride, like sports background too, right? And we all grew up with like sports background. My brother and I are always with the World Cup, and I'm sure you too, with, you know, sports and everything. And so when we made that flag and went to the intramural sports, and like you said, like we even had those. I remember when you said we put 2-4 and then the arrow down, and and I remember that original flag with the Brazil flag and the highway sign. I mean, all that was just like stuff that was just prideful for us, man. And it was the fact that I think why we probably took it to the level we did was because the fact that it was burnt went beyond a prank in the sense of like, shoot, it's destroyed. Like the property's destroyed, you can't get it back. It's not like, oh, okay, we took it for a second. Okay, here we go. Like, or they came to an instrumental or an instrumental game and waited it out. Like, you know, that would have been a prank. Like, oh, okay, they got it. They're the ones that stole it. But the fact that it was actually destroyed and you know, I think that's probably what hit us the most.
No, for sure. You bring up a great point because I agree 100%. Had they taken it, had they taken like a ransom, put a ransom note with it or something like, okay, that's funny, but because it was burned, it was destroyed. There was no getting it back, and we did make more flags after that, but none of them felt the way that original one felt.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think like for me, like even going back to the beginning, like when my brother and I first got there in our first semester, again, we didn't know anyone, and we were rooming together, right? So that was at least easy. And like again, we grew up in a little bit more of an urban context, right? And so when we got to college, when we came to Valley Forge, it's kind of in the suburbia, out in the country. And so I remember going in my room, my brother, we're having a little heart-to-heart talk. I said, listen, we got to try to get integrated, meet people. I said, we got to find one white dude who we can integrate. You know, if we could be BFFs with one white dude, we'll be in, we'll be good. All right. And so we found out he was perfect. You know, got the tattoos, you listen to rock and roll, whatever you listen to, whatever it was. But no, man, I think I just can't even remember how we even met, but it was just like an instant bond, you know, and connection. And really, I don't even remember how we even got connected to 2-4 Down on a bigger scale. But I do remember us hanging out all the time, the three of us. I do remember being up in the balcony watching the game. I don't know if it was a school game or intramural game, but we were just having fun, the three of us. And I think that's why the flag for me represented a sense of like brotherhood, you know, that deep sense of just friendship. And so when that was burned, I think some of that hit the core, and you know, that impulse was just like, oh, you're messing with our brotherhood. It's just like, you know, army of brothers in the army, and you burn the American flag, that does something, right, to the soldiers. And again, ours is, I mean, that's exaggerated, right? Ours was just
Sure.
not even can compare at all. But I'm just trying to set that mindset of what it was like, I think, for us with that flag burning initially.
And probably too, let's be real, probably, you know, because I think it was Alex, he was making face like, why would they be, he was joking, like, why would they be mad? Like, okay, well, it was actually pretty, it looked pretty, you know, you watch the video, it's burning, and but I think who else, like, there was a little bit of mimicking too, right? Because they mimicked us. I mean, not that it was malicious, and they were just making fun. It was a prank. They were just, but I think maybe with the combination of the flag burning and the music and then mimicking, maybe that could have been why we were probably so riled up. And I was actually thinking about the fact that it's more of a joke than anything, but like we kept saying, we had went on Friday night to go watch 300. And like a funny part of this is that like they probably don't realize we were grieving. We were grieving that Leonidas in the 300 had just died and had been slaughtered. And then here we come, bro. And then we see our flag burning. That like, bro, it's the dead of the 300 in us.
Yeah, it's like, how you gonna do that right after we watch 300? Like, you know, it's a like we're in a band together. Like,
if we had as a floor, if we had all gone to see Pocahontas or something like that, we would have come back and been like, oh, where'd our flag go? Like, that's kind of, that sucks. But we saw 300 and we're like, there's got to be blood. Like,
yeah. But I was impressed, man, because I think from that, you know, from a little flag, I think that really boosted. Again, so they actually helped cultivate like our 2-4 Down group, right, where we bonded together, and from that point on, we were so close and so tight. And that even that we're talking about it even to this day, which is crazy. But it just really sped the family process for us. So it's a sense of brotherhood, a sense of family. Again, I know from watching their episode and getting their perspective, like that wasn't their intent to hit those cores, right? But that's what it was for us at the time.
And that's what I told them too, because after their episode, I sent them a message that said just like, listen, man, this is water on the bridge. Like, I'm sure no one even nowadays is crying over this and still upset about it. I mean, we talk about it now, just like on our other episodes, we talk about other pranks, and we go back and reminisce about those moments, and those, even Had and I talk about, we joke around all the time about me ball tapping him and he choking me to death almost, and my brother saving my life, and you know what I mean? Like, so many different pranks. And so we go back and we talk about this too, but you know, I think all of us really look at it as a prank, and we know, like you said, listen to the episode, nothing malicious and crazy like that, nothing personal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I ended up texting them too, and I said, "Catch me outside. How about that?" You know, like, nah, I didn't even text them, but you know, I appreciate them. They actually, it's funny because I love their sense of humor, and I think that like I didn't really get to know them well. I think kind of knew of them. Alex a little bit more than Phil, but I feel like he like they remind me of my relation with my brother. You know, I feel like I'm a little bit of a Phil, and my brother is a little bit of an Alex. You know, and I just feel like my brother and I, we like to joke around, have a sense of humor, and I get sometimes my sense of humor can be a little bit out of control or not appropriate sometimes. I guess we'll say, right? But it was just cool to see it. Just you know how they laugh and their bond, and I felt like it represent my brother and I too. But I feel like they would had I gotten to know them more, I feel like we would have been close too in some regards. They're like a white version of us. So
what's crazy is 100% had those two been on 24 down, like had they been living on 24 down apart, like they would have fit in like 100%. They would have been in on all the antics that we got into. It just so happened that we lived on different floors. I love that. I love that you guys are bringing up that, you know, after listening to their episode, you understand their perspective. And I think, and that's a huge thing that I wanted to do with this whole like flag burning episodes thing. But I think they really understand our perspective as well. And it is like you said, it is water under the bridge at this point. So I don't know. I just think that's really cool. The other thing, Mike, that you said, and I'm glad you said this, because I'm going to share something Talesha told me the other day off air, and it goes pretty much exactly with what you just said about how, if anything, it made us, you know, even stronger and whatnot. Talesha posed the question, and it's a great question. If they don't burn the flag, maybe the 24 Down podcast doesn't exist today, you know, because it is a moment that brought us all so much closer. It was something that fueled our brothership, our brotherhood, you know. So in a way, like we almost got to thank them, you know, like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was the funny thing. Like you guys said, it was, you know, you had asked us what we thought about it and what we felt back then. And again, it's probably the combination of watching 300 die the night before, and then seeing the flag burn and knowing that like this is not Photoshop, but what it is, the flag is actually done and burned, and a little bit of mimicking. But I think, like you said on your podcast, or with them, the fact that we didn't even know them, like I had no idea who Phil and Alex was. I had no idea who. Actually, I still don't know. You guys kept mentioning Todd. I'm like, Todd, what the heck is Todd? And I'm like, I want to see a picture of this dude because I remember Josh Davies. I remember Brian Crow, whatever his name is. I didn't know Joey, but I remember seeing him after the whole thing. But I think because it was folks that we didn't know, had it been someone, Kyle Young from Four Down, that we had played soccer with or had a relationship with, like, it would have been water on the bridge right away. It would have been like, okay, yeah, you kind of messed up a flag, but, you know, it was, you know, it would have been what it was. And I think the fact that we didn't know them made it seem more malicious, I guess, more personal than anything. Not personal, but I guess at that time it felt personal.
Well, and the crazy thing is like, because I didn't, of the 6 or 7 guys involved, I knew of, like, I think I knew of Joey just because Joey was just kind of that like loud guy around campus that you couldn't help but not at least notice, you know. I knew Josh Davies because he would hang out with 24 down here and there. I knew Brian because I worked with Brian. And that's about the extent of things. Like, I didn't know Phil and Al. I didn't know Todd. To be honest, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I didn't even really, like, I don't remember ever seeing them around or anything. And
exactly, right.
And so I guess like one of the things with that whole dynamic that I wanted to bring up here is like I didn't know them, but I instantly like was like, these guys are public enemy number one. I can't stand. I don't know these guys, but at the time I'm like, I can't stand these guys. Like, whatever. And so fast forward to the next year, I will never forget this moment lives in like the top of my memory, and I can like think back to it at any point, and I can remember so much detail about it. But the next year, I'm driving back from Michigan, driving to go back to college, and I'm probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours away from Valley Forge, and I get a phone call as I'm driving. It's from Mike, and he was like, he was like, hey, he's like, you'll never guess who they put on the floor.
Oh my god.
And I remember like instantly, like my first thought, because that was the year that you left, right?
Yeah.
That's probably why I didn't even know them afterwards either.
Right. And so I remember like thinking, like at first thinking like it was like a great feeling, like, oh my god, like Mikey's telling me that Junior is coming back, like, and I like had this like super like excited, like, oh, like who, and then he says Alex Anderson, and I literally like, I'm telling, my mood changed on the spot, and my foot, I'm not joking, I've said this before, but it's not a joke, my foot literally went from like being on the gas pedal all the way down to the like ground. I probably I might have had hour and a half, 2 hours left on the trip, and I think I got there in like 30-40 minutes. I fled there, and I got there, and I just remember like walking in, and all I wanted to do was like walk past the room and just give him and again, like, why? I didn't know the guy. Like before he burned the flag, I didn't even know the guy existed, but now he's the guy that did this terrible thing to us, and it just, I guess it speaks to the character of 24 Down, that very shortly after that, Alex became a just as much a part of 24 Down as anybody else living on the floor. It took some time, I won't lie. Like it didn't happen instantly. I was giving him some evil eyes for a while, and I think some people were too. But like in a very short amount of time, the 24 Down family realized his character, and they accepted his character and became part of the family. And then like outside of that, you look at like Phil never came back to campus or anything like that, as a student, I should say. But like it was the same thing, like people that were able to get a chance to meet Phil through Alex, or whatever, talk to Phil, get to know him, it was that same thing, like, why was I so heated against this guy? And now, like, hearing their perspective, I think it helps even more, because now it wasn't intentional. It wasn't malicious. It was them pulling a prank that we would have done the exact same thing. In a parallel universe, if 4 Down had a flag and they were waving it and they were just as annoying as us, guess what? We would have gone and stole their flag and burned it. Like, maybe not exactly, but we would have done something like that. I wouldn't put it past us.
Yeah, I agree.
I could agree with them with what they had mentioned. Like, we were probably real annoying. I mean, we were probably really obnoxious. And had it been any other group of whatever type of skateboarders or this type of group with that type, and whatever type of group would have been loud and obnoxious would have annoyed us probably as well, and we probably would have wanted to done something as well. So I absolutely hear them and wanting to probably do something to us to shut us up.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because you look back now, it's just so petty, and I agree. It's like any type of prank you would have seen anywhere else, that's done nowadays. And so, like, I in some ways I feel bad, of like the results of that for them, even like long term, you don't even realize looking back, like, and again, like, I don't know, so you just feel bad that put like a mark on them in some ways, but in some ways they deserve it too. So. No, just kidding. I was just kidding. But it's crazy to think about the power we had, like, just like as we rallied together. And I remember just being so angry when I watched that video. Even some of it when I watch it again, even tonight before watching it, I watched the flag episode. And I do. It was you, Josh, who like you walked out of the room. Like, I'm going upstairs. And remember, we like rallied up against you. And I can't remember Todd's face, but I remember he was a tall dude. And I remember you knocking on the door, and I'm like right behind you. Yeah, we can get this dude, right? You knocking the door, and then this dude opens the door, and there's a tall Todd. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead. And I was like, oh, that, he's pretty tall. And wasn't he there too?
Yeah, Bowden was there. Yep.
Yeah, that was like scrawny Baldwin at the time, and he had like the wavy hair, and I remember him knocking on the door. Maybe it was Davis or Todd, one of them. And I remember him confronting someone, which if he did that now, man, nobody would mess with him. But yeah, it's just crazy how I just think about, yeah, we went a little bit overboard, in our reaction, but.
And I would Dylan. So there was only 2 people that I remember being like pissed at or about, like feeling a little more personal, or I remember like wanting to go at them, like, and that was only Josh Davies. And if I remember right, if I'm remembering Joey De La Cruz correct, he was a Filipino looking dude.
Yep.
Right, kind of, give or take.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I just remember us going to the intramural game and like us staring at him and like making it awkward every time he went up for a layup, and I don't know why I don't remember feeling Alex as much, maybe because again, maybe we just didn't know him that much, or I don't know why I didn't take it as personal with them, or maybe they were taller and they did scare. I don't know what like you said, why didn't you come to board join us? Because you were there. I didn't want to go over there. But I don't remember. Those are the only 2 that I really remember taking it personal. But I remember Josh Davies, you guys had mentioned whether he got expelled or suspended. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2, but I definitely remember him getting suspended because I remember his parents coming there. I remember watching him from our window hat, getting his stuff and packing his car. And then me starting to feel a little bad, like, oh, dang, is he really like expelled and kicked out? Once I was like, yeah, we all, I think, kind of hyped up, but the side of us were probably like, oh, shoot. So I remember him getting suspended.
I completely forgot until you just mentioned that. And I remember that now too. Like I remember his parents coming and them carrying all his stuff out to the car and everything like that. Yeah. So again, like with Josh Davies, it felt personal because Josh was like hanging out around us quite a bit prior to that.
It was like a betrayal.
Betrayal.
Yeah. And with Joey, without like going too much into detail, Joey was dating a girl who then when they broke up, that girl was part of the 24 Down family. Like she was hanging out with, and so we knew like, okay, from him, it's personal too, because he's mad that his ex is like hanging out with the rest of us and everything like that. So I think that's why. And again, for Phil, for Al, for Todd, for Brian, like it wasn't, they were just bored one night like we would have been. And they were like, hey, this would be fun to do,
Yeah.
And it wasn't even initiated by them. It was
I remember
initiated
were Josh Davis and Alex. I just remember his face afterwards and like kind of like giving him more of a hard look, which if I did and he remembers that, I totally apologize for being stupid and childish in that way. But there was something about Davis that really was personal, and I think it was, you guys mentioned it, like I think I remember some of the comments, I think that got me heated. And then when he said 2-4 down sluts, it was him that said that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that like really got me hyped because I didn't know if he was talking about us, which I felt disrespected. And then, or if he was talking about the ladies, right? Which angered us even more. And then I was dating Amber, right? And so it's like, you just call my girl slut. Like, that got me angry. And so I think, again, all that just fueled the fire, right, in making this crazier than it had to be. But
that's probably why it was more personal with Josh, like you said, because of the fact of MySpace. There was that, I don't remember exactly what was going on with the whole conversation on MySpace, but because we actually had dialogue with him probably on the MySpace, and he was defending himself, or I felt like he was trying to be tough, if I remember, on the MySpace. That's what stirred us up, because he was trying to be tough on the MySpace, and then that's where it got a little more personal. That's why I don't remember anything with Alex and Phil because they didn't make comments, and I remember them even mentioning like they didn't want to get involved in the whole comments and making that personal. That's probably why.
It was just the two of them. It was Josh and Joey were the only ones making comments.
That's why I remember them.
Yep.
So Josh Davis got. I know you guys were wrestling with that. I think he did get suspended at least or something. I remember him getting kicked out. But was it for that reason specifically?
So we've started to piece this together a little bit, and you'll hear a lot of this within this episode when the full episode is released. But from my understanding, long story short, it was a matter of because none of the other guys got kicked out, right? But everybody, so Talesha did what he did with the audio to figure out, okay, it's Josh Davies clear as day. And then we happened to look at Josh Davies' MySpace page, and the night of the flag burning, Josh Davies becomes friends with Phil Anderson, Alex Anderson. So it's like, okay, so now we know who it is, right? And Talesha went up to Todd and maybe some other people and was like, hey, like, I know, like I have proof. I know. I just need you guys to be honest with me, whatever. So I don't know if they asked every single person, but they asked some people, hey, were you involved in this? All they wanted was just an admission. Like, yeah, I was involved in this. Nothing was going to happen. And I don't know if they asked everybody, but everybody that did ask was honest and said, yep, I was a part of that. Josh Davies denied, gave multiple chances. Josh, like, come on, tell us. And he kept denying. So the reason, what I've pieced together, the reason that he got kicked out was because he was given the chance to be honest and he lied. And the other part of it was the flag burning itself. Like, what could they really do? What could the school really do? Nothing. But it was the comments that he made in the video that were they were malicious comments. Right. And that's when you can like hold somebody to the flame for that. No pun intended. And the fact that you're given a chance to be honest and then you lie about it. Okay, and so I think that's kind of what we've pieced together. And I could be wrong. I don't know. I've put out that if Josh Davies wants to come on this podcast at any time, he's more than welcome. I actually in another portion of this podcast you guys will hear, like I kind of said some stuff that it might shock you that I completely like, dude, water under the bridge type of stuff with him too, you know? So, yeah, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, but see, all that makes sense now. Why, for some reason, in my mind, like I have no idea who Todd is. I can remember. And Phil and Alex, even when you guys did the whole episode, I'm like, I really don't even remember beef with them, even when we found out that they were involved. And when we went into the intramural basketball game, I don't remember staring them down or, you know, trying to get them all riled up. Like, but I remember Josh Davis, but I remember specific in America, like making it awkward for Joey. And that makes sense now because they tying them back into the MySpace comments and getting more personal, malicious there, and them trying to act big and tough. That's where we started to get offended. But, and even for me, I think it was more Joey's like, Joey, you are brown skin. This is ours, you know, white people. So what you brown people do now light stuff on fire. What are you doing? Like, I think that's why I was offended too.
Or they don't know how to cover their tracks, bro.
Yeah, cover your tracks.
Put it all out there. And I remember we were like that, man. Like I remember watching it over and over and over. And we were like FBI agents trying to like decrypt all this stuff, right? To try to see who it was. And I do remember blaming so many different other people.
Oh yeah.
Not even realizing it was this group of guys that, again, for me, I didn't even know other than Josh.
Yeah, but going back to that in the mirror game too, man, one of the funniest things, I kept laughing, man, when Phil was talking about like when I guess they were a little bit buzzed before, and then he said after the tip off, I'm gonna take this basketball and I'm gonna drain this three, and then like went on top of like the pointer, and he missed the shot completely or something. It was so funny when he was talking about that, man. I was cracking up.
That's why I said these guys, they seem really cool, man. They have down to earth personalities. I love their sense of humor. I hope they keep that, you know. And it's funny because just watching their comment when you talk about me pooping on the floor, the comments are hilarious, you know. But yeah, man, I think if there's anybody, still, we look back and we laugh and we joke, and it's light. We moved on, right? Past all this. But if there's people who are still angry to today, then there's some real issues that need some real counseling. You know what I'm saying, to deal with some of that. So I hope they don't feel any of that animosity from us or from anybody else, because that would be stupid, really.
Well, the last thing that I'm gonna say, and then I'll let you guys kind of close out and say whatever you want to say. And it's just one last. I'm not trying to like harp on this or bring this up again like that.
Harp on it. Do it.
I think it's another interesting story. Again, we talk about how like Phil and Al, like we didn't even really like know them, and the one story that like sticks in my mind is, I don't know if you remember, like everybody remembers the intramural game after, where we were all like just giving them a hard time. But I don't know how many people remember, like shortly after, we're all in the cafeteria, and Phil talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And Phil, he's sitting at a table by himself. And so the portion of the story that I remember is like, I'm there and I go and sit down with 24 down, and like I kind of hear some rumblings. Like I don't even like I don't even put two and two together. And like somebody literally has to say, that's Phil. That's one of the ones that burned our flag. Because I just had no idea, And so I think that's really interesting that like I could be sitting across the table from you and I didn't even know that you had a part of it. Because again, it wasn't meant from most of their perspectives. It wasn't meant to be something that we took it as, but I think they do understand why we took it as that. So that's all I'm going to say for now. And I will let you guys give your last little bits. I appreciate you guys coming on and doing this. It was really important for me to kind of share my version of the story of why the flag meant so much to me. And you guys were the biggest part of why that flag meant so much to me. So.
Yeah, man. Go ahead, Jude.
Don't tell me what to do. I go where I want to go. You don't own me. You're not player number one anymore. I'm player number one. My brother never let me be player number one.
But you're about to go. You're about to go.
No, man, I disagree with that, man. I even listened to their episode, it just confirmed for us that they didn't even initiate the whole thing. It wasn't even malicious. It was probably more stirred from Joey Dela Cruz's jealousy of a woman, just like Bathsheba and David or whatever. And
hey, you don't read your Bible.
and no, man, but there's some cool dudes, man. I really enjoyed watching their episode, and again, their sense of humor. And it wasn't malicious. I mean, they were probably just bored, and like we were bored many times, and did a lot of different pranks. And I think I was probably off campus already when that whole Phil thing happened, with them being in the cafeteria and feeling awkward. And so, if we ever made them feel awkward, whether it was in the mirror game or whether they never even felt awkward, whatever the case may be, man, it just water on the bridge. And I'm glad that they're part of the 2-4 Down family. And that they're part of the chat, and then they're ongoing with these podcasts and everything too. So, listen, man, more on the bridge. And like I told them, one day look forward to having a beer with them one day. And but if you guys do want to give us the flag back or something for maybe the tournament, that would be nice. But we won't make you do that. But yeah, man. That's all I say. But water on the bridge.
Yep, I think I said the same thing. I think we've all moved on. It's fun to just reminisce about this. Appreciate the memory that it left for us. Like to think about just a group of us were able to shake things up so crazy that it caused all this. And again, I feel bad in one way for them because of that. But like I remember storming into like the student live and like getting Talasha involved, and we were all going crazy. But these guys are cool guys, man. And I'm sad that it ended up in some ways that it did, and I didn't get to know Phil and some of these other guys the way that them. But yeah, look forward to hearing from everybody else. And they may have burned the first initial flag, but I want them to know that they can never burn out the flag, 2-4 Down flag in our hearts, baby. So, booyah, 2-4 Down. Love y'all, man. Love y'all.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. So that was pretty much for me. I mean, I tried to do my best to explain why the flag meant so much to me. It wasn't as much of the physical flag itself, but what that flag represented to me. To be honest, like when we were talking about it, like I got choked up at one point, just kind of like explaining like why it meant what it meant to me. But I don't know what you guys think about what we just heard.
Yeah, man. I mean, they bring the excitement, bro. It's like a friggin' circus when they're around. It's like a concert, bro. Yeah, I love those guys. I love when you guys are together, the triplets, man. So yeah, man. I mean, definitely, it was kind of like your kind of like way in. It was kind of like your initiation almost into like 24 down. Even though we were already there and we were already accepting you, it was just a way to you guys to show us that, hey, we're really here for you guys and we're supporting you. And I thought that was awesome. So definitely, it's not just the flag. It doesn't even just represent our floor. It represents, you guys coming on our floor and you guys just supporting us. And we got more support from that. You know what I mean? And definitely it did mean a lot. And that's why it meant a lot to me as well. Like I said, a flag represents something, and this was more than representation. This was like a piece of your heart that was kind of like burned, you know what I mean? And peed on and trampled on. And even though it wasn't peed on, it looked like it was peed on. And we were called sluts and all that stuff, and yeah, man, I definitely agree with that sentiment, because I was, like I said, until I heard the podcast with Alex, until I heard the part one of flag burning, I still held a grudge between like against them, because even like I would, even Phil would say stuff about me in the chat that we have, and I would be like, yo, why is this guy even saying my name? Why is my name in his mouth? I would actually be upset about it, bro. But then finally just hearing it was like a conversation, and I would love to be on a podcast with them just to talk about it and be like, yo, man, now we know you guys. I know you guys, and we don't hold this against you anymore. But definitely it was so big back then, and yeah, definitely meant a lot.
Yeah, those two, they're definitely passionate. You can tell by the startup of that segment there. But just a comment quick to something that you guys were saying. Hat, you often acknowledge that 24 down was a thing before you three came in. But to be like completely honest, in my opinion, I started in 24 up for a semester before I went down. But before that day where you brought the flag and the posters and drew on your arms, like you said, we were close, but it wasn't till that day that it was taken to the next level of like family, because we knew each other, we were close, we like had people down the hall and stuff, but we never did any of the stuff that publicly. We never like were like verbal, loud, public about like how we act and stuff until you guys showed up. I don't even remember. It might have been basketball. I think you showed up for that. It was an intramural basketball game maybe. And I remember playing and someone being like, because you three were new, so we all didn't know you very well. We all knew you, but we didn't actually know you. So when you showed up, you went up to the balcony and you had the signs and all that stuff. And someone was like, guys, look, there's people up there like with 24 down stuff. And we were all just like, I remember very distinctly looking up and be like, wow, that's incredible. And that's when it like started. That's like the next level where we just were like, it's time to go public. It's time to like make this as good as it can possibly be. And like we couldn't have done that without the Brazilian twins and you. And with their charisma and their passion and your passion with them, it was just like, it was a wrap. Like that day one of like some of the best days that we've ever had.
I never really thought of that, man. Because definitely we were close, and like you said, we were maybe close in a family still, but a little more to ourselves. We weren't really public with everything. I mean, the second year that I was there was your first year, Francis, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, definitely. That's when the sports started. That's when we started really getting good at stuff, and that was like the infancy of it. And we definitely got really good really fast. But we really weren't loud about it and public about it. But yeah, definitely, I would say, Josh and the twins, with all the things that they were bringing, we got loud about it, and maybe that, we caught a lot of people's attention, and that's why they wanted to burn a flag.
Well, I mean, hearing that from you guys, like I can't tell you how much that means just to hear you guys say that. Like that means a lot, and I really appreciate it. I think, and I don't mean to like, I'm not trying to sound cocky or pat myself on the back or anything like that, but it was one of those things where it's, I don't know if it's just a God thing or what, but like having the three of us come together, like you might not have been able to pick another like three crazy people to like come together, because we are all like, all three of us are real crazy in our own ways and real like just it was like, I feel like the three of us could have done that anywhere. Thankfully it was with 24, but it was just the fact that like if I got placed in Four Down and they got placed in Bongiorno, then who knows what would have ever happened. But the fact that we were all there, we all met, this like, I think I showed up like very shortly after they got to campus. And again, it was when nobody else was there, because students hadn't returned yet. And so we were kind of forced to click, but we just clicked. And then you bring in that like craziness that all three of us have. And I guess it was just the right formula then. So no, it's cool. And I do appreciate you guys saying that. Like I said, I mean, I don't know the environment before my time. I guess I just assumed that it was always like hype and always crazy and everything like that, because I don't know it before my time. But what I guess I do want to bring up is that like, Francis said like how we kind of knew each other. Like, the three of us kind of knew everybody, not everybody, a lot of people on the floor, but we didn't really know anybody. And that's why like we were so determined we want to make a mark. And credit to both of you, because Buddha, I think, was probably the first person to come up to the triplets, the Brazilian triplets, if you will, and like really introduce himself and stuff. And it allowed us to feel comfortable with this guy who's now in his third year. And we're like, okay, like that's good. And Francis, I know like you and I connected early, again, but it was more in passing. I think we just connected on, I think I had my Silverstein hoodie on and you said something about, oh, you like Silverstein too. And I was like, okay, this guy likes the same music. And so we kind of had like, you both reached out to us, in ways that it made us then want to really, really dive in and become part of this and do whatever we could to bring the things up. So as much as you guys are saying, like our craziness might have helped push it, like your guys' kindness and willing to accept us right away made us want to be like, okay, let's make sure they really, really accept us. So you guys need to take some credit too, I guess is what I'm getting at. But well, speaking of people and how they reacted, we're going to go the complete opposite end of the spectrum here. And we're going to talk to Tom Rizzo and Matthias, who at the time fooled me. Like I would have thought that everybody on our floor was just furious. Turns out it wasn't the case. Tom and Matthias both were kind of like, whatever. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to hear why they felt that way. So let's take it over to that. All right. So for this little segment here, I thought it was really important to bring on these two guests that I've got with me, because they had a different perspective than a chunk of us did in 24 Down. And at the time, I didn't necessarily understand why they had the perspective they did. Now, 15 years later, I understand a lot more. But I think it is important to tell this side of the story. So without any further ado, let me welcome Tom Rizzo and Matt Matthias. How's it going, guys?
What's up? What's good? How's it going?
What's happening?
So yeah, I mean, I guess taking it back, like without like going too much in depth, because we've covered a lot on this podcast already. But the flag burning happens, and quite a few of us were like really just fuming about it. And you guys both were very laid back about it. I know, Matthias, you said recently, I think on your episode of this podcast, you were, I'm not going to quote you exactly, but you said something along the lines of like, to be honest, like I could care less about that flag, you know. And
Yeah.
and you were able to see past the flag and see the people on the other side. Tom's a little bit similar. Tom had a relationship with Phil and Alex, and he wasn't like he didn't let something like this affect his friendship with them. And I think both those things are interesting of their own way. And I just kind of want to pick your guys' brains and hear maybe why it was that way for you guys.
I guess I'll start because I felt like my place with 24 down was a bit more nuanced than everyone else because I kind of mentioned this on Dwayne's podcast. Sorry, I'm a little nasally. I'm a little sick still, but like I kind of, I guess, meandered between different circles in Valley Forge. Like I hung out with like, the black kids and the hood guys. I hung out with, you know, you guys, which is like I say the white guys, but we're 24 Down's more like a multicultural floor, but it's still like a different culture than
Sure.
what I would hang out with.
And we're white.
And I mean for the majority. And then like I had my crowd that I had that was like in my barbershop that I hung out with as well. So I mean I kind of, just for some of those type of I guess where it was kind of like things tied to the flag and more like I guess intrinsic to like the deeper like I guess I could say like meanings or the more symbolic things that you guys did. There's a lot of stuff that you guys did that I was just like, all right, well, go ahead and go off. I guess, you guys have fun with that. Like I would watch a lot of the things that you would do. Even though I still identify as a 24 downer, as because I lived there for almost the whole time I was in college, I kind of observed a lot of the things you guys did because it kind of wasn't like what I did. I was kind of just like an observer for a lot of the stuff, but I don't know if that makes sense at all. But anyways, like as far as the flag is concerned, it wasn't until you like sent me this long explanation, like we were talking through text one day about the history of the flag that I didn't even know any of that. Like, I remembered a lot of the stuff you had brought up as far as like the origins of the flag and where you what it meant to you. And I know there was probably some other people that were familiar with that as well. Is that true?
Yeah, I would think. I would think there's, and I talked about this a little bit, and you guys have either heard this in the podcast already, or you will hear this later. I don't know which order I'm going to put this in, but I talked about it with the Brazilian twins a little bit more about what the flag meant to me and some more of the history. But I don't know that everybody really fully knew all of that. So.
Mhm.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I know as much as it, so I'm excited to hear. Like, I'm not too familiar with what you're referencing.
Yeah, dude, it definitely helped me understand where a lot of like Hat's passion for it came from. And it sounds like, I wasn't really involved with the intramurals either. Like I probably only did like dodgeball with y'all and I tried to do basketball, but I suck at that. But like I watched a lot of y'all's intramurals and you guys crushed it and I was just a cheerleader on the side. Sometimes I mooed people, but like besides the point, you guys were I loved watching you guys do your thing. And so the flag itself didn't mean much to me because that was more intrinsically involved with what you guys were doing with the the competitive side of 24 down and the the intramurals and things like that and what it represented to you guys as like a like a bard in a war, so to speak. It's like, this is my flag. And
Catch with the vuvuzela. Like,
yeah. And then so I got that and like I was ready to turn up, as I mentioned in my podcast. I was ready to turn up and fight people for you guys because I know how much it meant to you. But like the flag itself, I was like, well, let's just make another one. It's just it was it looked like a piece of crap anyway. And you guys did. You made like a freaking tarp. Basically, I think it like quadrupled in size. And you guys came back even more powerful. So I mean, those are my initial. That was why I had the the stance I did during the whole burning of the flag and how I postured myself during all that.
think
That's good.
for me, it was like, I think I just never really cared so much about flags to begin with. Like, even like the same way that I look at like the American flag, I'm like that doesn't represent the people. Like, don't let that represent the floor. So I think that kind of carried over with me, where I was like, that flag they could burn 100 flags and we're still going to be going 40 deep to lunch and like and whooping in sports. But then in the same breath, I also think that I have never been super competitive. So like, even like with like the intramural stuff and like like I didn't look at that as representation of us. So initially it was just like I probably, like you again, like you mentioned it when on the episode with Alex and Phil talking about it, like you probably were out like that, getting into a fight at campus. Like I was like, oh wow, this is about to be like like I got behind that more than I got behind actually defending of the flag. And it's actually funny too, because I feel like me and Matthias are probably the only ones that like would really throw down when it came to it. So like that was that we were the least caring about the flag burning in itself.
Yeah, the two most capable of actually getting in a fight. Meanwhile, like me, 120 pounds soaking wet, like going up and like, yeah, I'll take. Like, what am I gonna do? You know,
Awesome wrestling moves.
Yeah, right. So, two interesting things. One for each of you. Like, with Matthias, and we've talked about this a little bit throughout this podcast or the history of this podcast. Like, Matthias really was like the friend of everybody at the college. Granted, yes, he lived in 24 down and he bled 24 down just as much as anybody else, but his friendships extended outside of the walls of 24 down, where a lot of times like ours didn't. Right or wrong, like ours didn't. You'd have little instances of friendships outside of those walls, but Matthias was that kind of guy that like, hey, you need a haircut? Yeah, come here. And like, I'm going to build a relationship with you. You know, I'm walking past you in chapel. You seem like a cool person. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you. Like, and that speaks so much to the character that Matthias is. So I know when the first time I heard Matthias say like,
sorry,
no, you're good.
I actually
the first time I heard Matthias say like, oh, the flag wasn't like that big of a deal. It didn't even like bother me at all, because I'm like, I get it. Like, knowing who Matthias is, like, I get it. And so that's kind of one thing I wanted to say about Matthias. And Tom, I guess one of the things you said, and you talked about how like the flag just never really meant as much to you, because it doesn't necessarily, you brought up the American flag and it doesn't represent the people and everything like that necessarily as a whole. And I know like I'm kind of putting words together, but like, for some people, like the American flag is like a huge thing. And I know like, you know that, and you understand that, like, that's not your personal thing, but it's the same thing with like the 24 down flag. Like it didn't mean anything to you, but you understood that it meant something to me. It meant something to some other people. And so I brought this up the other night in the chat. Like, I was like, you know what? I'm starting to realize that like, maybe this whole like flag burning thing, like I was the most like fueled by it and I like created all this stuff. But you guys, even though you didn't necessarily care, you still backed it. Like, you still backed the, hey, we're going to, doesn't mean anything to us, but we're going to, these are our brothers. We'll support them.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. So
I honestly think I probably wouldn't have cared at all if the pictures of the girls weren't in the video. Like I probably would have completely blown it off if it was, because then I was like, oh, that maybe they are like trying to be personal with it and set like, and obviously here listening to them talk, they weren't. It was just picking pictures off of our Facebook. But like if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have cared at all. Like it was like, but again, it was like, my family cares about it, so I'm definitely gonna throw down if I need to. And first, stupid. And in hindsight, like even though I knew them, that like I wish I would have been more involved hanging out with Phil and Alex, because like their creativity and like the way that they can like piece like scripts and videos and stuff together, like I feel like I would have been good in helping them with that, and like being a another character in one of their things, and I'm like mad that I didn't get to explore that more with them, and like that silly drama over a friggin' flag might have prevented even a couple weeks of that happening or whatever. Like those dudes are funny dudes, and knowing them, we knew that they were just being funny. But again, it was like seeing girls in it and stuff like that, and like girlfriends of people on the floor and stuff, like, which that's what may have pushed it over. But
Yeah, and they even mentioned too that it got out of hand, like their hands, because they intended it to be something, just to be like a prank. Well, we prank them and they prank us, and just like good old, college fun. But then, Josh Davies and them, they turned it into something personal, and that was not what they intended. Like listening to their side, so like, and like you said, yeah, the Anderson brothers, bro, they're just geniuses, man. They're like, we are so privileged to hear their creativity and to know them, because like their creative minds are just out of this world.
I like want them to get like a fat grant or some signing from some
Oh, yeah.
comedy network or something, like Funny or Die giving them $100K to like put some stuff together. It would be gold. Like the stuff they make in the backyard with you guys wrestling stuff is insane, and it's still like the poorest budget stuff, like, and it's incredible. Like,
Yo, everybody listening, if you have the chance, go to a WrestleFest. That is a good time, bro. Y'all gotta just go to one.
Especially if the dragon's going to be there, then definitely go to a WrestleFest.
I'm hoping Matthias is the dragon.
Matthias
That's
is
me, yeah.
yeah.
Dragon is champion.
No, they like, so, I've said this I feel like a lot of times I'm repeating myself, so I do apologize. But like, here's another thing, and I'm just going to bring it up again because it is so true. Like, those two, Phil and Alex specifically, they would 100% fit on 24 Down. Had they been placed on 24 Down, they would have been involved in everything that we ever did. They would have been a huge part of everything, just as, and that's why today they fit in with us as a group or whatever.
Yeah.
I
also think that they would, sorry I just want to toss this in what you're saying. I think that they would keep the same energies that they have now, where like, they'd be like, all right, guys, like sticking your hands together and chanting like is corny. Like they would say that, but still be a part of it. Like it would be
for sure,
clowning,
yeah,
but a part of the fellowship.
Yeah, I can hear Alex right now be like, wait, so we're putting our hands in right now and we're all yelling 20. All right, fine, yeah. I guess. Like,
where's insert eye roll gif?
Oh, Jesus Christ. We say, oh my God.
So like, that's him. And again, I don't want to just only paint the picture of these two, because there were more people involved in the flag burning. So now you talk about somebody like Todd. I was like, literally, I was gutted the other day when I heard Todd told Phil, like, I feel like the entire 24 Down hates me and that I'm like public enemy number one. And that gutted me, because I'm like, sure, at the time we did, because we were all young, we were all immature. Not all, most of us. You guys are cool about it. But the rest of us, like, we were young, we were immature. Like, I would love to sit down with Todd and I have publicly apologized to him on the Phil and Alex podcast. I'm sure Todd's a great dude that we would all get along with as well. But even like, Brian, like me and Brian, I never, again, this is just crazy. I never had a problem with Brian doing it. Because why? Because I had a friendship with him prior to it happening. And like, so backwards thinking at the time, like, he did the exact same thing everybody else did, but I was like, well, Brian's got a pass. He's fine. But then, the people that, like, again, we think had a more personal, like, attack towards us, Josh Davies, Joey De La Cruz. I was thinking about this the other day, and it just hit me. Like, I don't want to sit here 15 years later holding a grudge for something that two guys did in their late teens, early 20s. Because you want to know how many stupid things I did in my late teens, early 20s, late 20s, early 30s. Like, I do stupid shit all the time, and I wouldn't want that to hold against my character. And so at the end of the day, I don't know who from that side will hear this outside of Phil and Alex. But for those of you that
or
will,
or just Phil, because Alex isn't going to listen.
right? Yeah. But like, I really like, at least for me personally, and I want to say that the 24 Down family kind of would. I'm speaking for them. Maybe I'm not, but I just want to like let it be known that we've moved past it. We're all adults, and I'm sure we would all get along great. If I were to run into Todd at a bar right now, I don't know if he goes to a bar. I'm just saying, if I were to run into him, I'm sure we'd sit there and talk for an hour and just like shoot the shit, and it'd be great. And I think that's part of the reason I wanted to get all this flag episode stuff out there, was just to get it all out there, tell sides of the story, and realize we're all humans. We're all doing this thing at the same time, getting in this together, and we can all find different things that we connect on. So I know
This is why I love podcasts, because why would I go to therapy when I can just rant on a podcast? No, I mean, all joking aside, this type of stuff is really cathartic, and it's like, it's cool that we have this cool community that we've all experienced this at the same time, and we can kind of like, process this post-mortem. So it's all good. Like and I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the situation at Todd's door?
Yeah, because I was the one that led the charge. I was like,
I
he
remember
lived upstairs. I'm going up there right now.
I remember when you did that. I remember this very vividly. I don't remember a lot of things, but I remember this moment because I was ready to throw down and my adrenaline was like ready to go. I was like, it's go time. And so I was ready to rumble, but like I wanted to analyze the situation first. And so everybody, there was probably 20 dudes. How many people would you say?
At least.
And we're right at his door. And I remember him sitting at his desk and kind of just being like, guys, like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, just, trying to calm us down. And it's funny to hear that he was actually kind of buzzed at that moment too, according to Phil and Alex. But anyways, like, I remember that moment where everybody was like, the adrenaline was high and, energy was high and everybody was yelling. And he was just kind of sitting there. And I could just tell, like, the situation was not going anywhere. And I remember just walking away before anyone else. I don't think anyone else came with me, but I was just like, yeah, we're not going to fight this guy. This is just, we're just angry and we just need somebody to yell at. And
Yeah.
Could you imagine if we really fought that dude over a flag that burned? Like, if we were having this conversation now, and we're like, wow, we fought that dude over a flag
right.
that burned. Like,
right. And I've said it, like, he had the most unfortunate, like, out of everybody involved, he was the most unfortunate one because he happened to be the only one that lived in the exact same building as us.
It's true.
So
But
it was just,
I also think that we knew the least about him too. Like, at least there was a few of us that knew Phil and Alex and stuff. And like, you could see that there was probably, he had a little more like cockier edge than Phil and Alex. Not to say that he even was, but like, he was, I think he was like dating a pretty girl. He was like athletic, do all this stuff. So he had some like swagger to him. So I feel like it was like, there might have been some intimidation factor to us with that. And then again, not knowing and stuff. But again, like, none of us knew who he was. It could be a sweetheart. Like
right.
We were ready to throw down. It's so funny.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that's the thing. Another person that has been, I don't know why it's just kind of happened, that's been completely left out of all of this on their side of things is because Jeremy Sexton was involved too. And
great dude, man.
And like, but I think part of the reason he's left out of a lot of this is because, again, like, none of us really like knew him. Obviously Matthias, he knew him, but like none of us really knew him. But he's another one that like he had no ill intention, and like, now like it's like I love that I have this really close relationship with Phil and Al because I hear stories about Todd, I hear stories about Jeremy, I hear stories about Brian and stuff. I'm like, man, like I love these guys. Like I would totally get along with these guys. So ultimately, I don't know from that side who's listening to this episode, but I really just hope, if nothing else, if you take nothing else away, know that like the 24 Down family holds nothing against anybody. At least I don't, and I would think a lot of people don't as well. And I apologize for all the craziness that we put you guys through too.
Yeah, Jeremy's a great guy. I know him because D-Rob, the church that D-Rob went to, he went to. And I would go to D-Rob's youth group with him sometimes. I don't know, like I guess it's one of those things that they allow kids that graduated from the youth group to come back or whatever. And Jeremy would come with us as well. And really great guy, like super intelligent, like one of the most red-pilled people in Valley Forge probably, that was like under the radar, very talented. And yeah, like I know him, and he probably just meant it as a joke as well. Like I know he was just laughing his butt off as editing that video. I think he was the one who edited it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
super
him and
talented
Todd
guy.
together, maybe. I don't remember exactly.
It's I can speak to the guy's character, and he's just amazing. But I was thinking too, as you were talking, Hat, like I'm a Boy Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout actually, and it's kind of hypocrite. I can understand your passion for the flag because I'm indoctrinated to have a love for the American flag because of my Boy Scout training, where if somebody puts like the flag on the ground or if they do anything to disrespect the flag, there's just like this innate sense of patriotism that comes up, even though I'm not like a patriot at all. I'm not, because you know what I'm saying, I'm like not even like that, but that certain part of me is like drilled into my psyche, where it's like you show respect to that freaking flag or I'm gonna end your life. And so I get that to that extent, and I didn't even realize that until I heard you talking more about it just earlier, and listening to the flag burning episode. So like, yeah, flags are they are important, and they do symbolize a lot of things. You know, and so like I don't think there's anything wrong with the passion that you had for it, Hat. I just think that, yeah, we could have processed it better.
Sure.
Could have handled it better.
For
What if we
sure.
would have killed someone? Like, I
I mean, at the time I wanted to. I'm not gonna lie. You know,
was that before or after 300? Was our testosterone juices flowing?
yeah. That whole it's just.
Wait,
I mean,
wait, the one thing I wanted to bring up, because I haven't really heard anyone talk about it. Does anybody know if Josh Davies, if there was drama with a female from a 24 down girl? Like, I was trying to think about that, because I feel like the whole like non-relationship horrors thing, like there was like something that happened with a girl, and I can't remember what happened last week, so I don't remember if, but I feel like there had to have been something like that. Like,
so here's what I'll say. And again, as I'm editing, or as we're recording this podcast, I don't know where I'm going to place these different things. Maybe I'll make a note right now to place this DSHAP portion after, because that's a great question, and you're going to get a lot of that answer in the DSHAP portion of this.
Sweet.
So I won't give it away. That's a great question, and when we're off air, I'll tell you some of the stuff, Tom.
Okay.
But
wait on the next sequence.
but yeah, so DSHAT covers. I wanted to have DSHAT on because he was roommates with Davies, and he covers a lot of perspective of things that we didn't necessarily see from Davies' end of things, and he actually touches on what he thinks that Davies meant by saying certain things. So that will be touched on here as you guys continue to listen to this episode. But yeah, no, that's a great question, honestly, because that's another thing, is like, we don't know. We never got clarity from the people that again, I'm not trying to throw their names on the bus, but the Josh Davies and the Joey De La Cruz, we never got the reasoning of, okay, why did this mean so much to you? And they're welcome to come on if they ever want to, but it's good to kind of try and piece that stuff together.
Yeah. I was curious about that. Man, it's funny.
Well, I think, I guess I'll say my last little thing with you guys, and then I'll let you guys each kind of give your final words as well. I think at the time, if I were to, Matthias, I love you so much. If I were to hear you at the time be like, I don't care about the flag, I'd have been like, no. Like, I would have been like, all right, now I got to go pound on Matthias's door and try and fight him. And he would have kicked my ass. Thank God that never happened. But like, thinking about it now, from 15 years removed from the thing, I respect both of you guys for having the hindsight to be like, these are just regular dudes. This is another thing I've said before. If 4 Down had a flag and they were waving around all the time, guess what? 24 Down would have gone and stole that flag and burned it. Like, it's something that we would have done too. Like, it really is. As much as it pissed us off, it's something we probably would have done as well. So hats off to the flag burners for pulling one over on us. But
And they did it well too.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
edited like that. I love Phil was talking about it. I was like, that music was so good for it. Like, it was just
Production.
so fitting. The
Yeah.
production was on point.
Yeah.
Respect.
But so, Matthias, when you said that, had you said that at the time, I would have been like, damn it. No, it was my birthday twin. No, but I respect
After all we've been through.
I respect the fact that you had that mindset when it was so hard for the rest of us to have that mindset. Tom, you're the same way, man. Like, I think it's funny, like, as we go through this podcast and not the flag burning, just the 24 Down podcast in general, how many times your name comes up for, like, Buddhist question of who's the most smooth, or like just in general, your name comes up as like being a cool guy. It's because, like, you had this ability to just be friends with everybody loves Tom, and it, thinking back on it, it really, really makes me like have no doubts that you two would have been the two to been like, guys, this is not that big of a deal, and see past it, because that's who you guys are as people. So at the time, I would not have liked it. Today, I appreciate it, and I respect you both for that. So I'll let you guys kind of give your little last things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely appreciate that, Hat. The new and improved, mature Hat. I'm totally 21. Oh man, yeah. I guess my parting words would kind of just be the same as what I've said. Like, I feel like even though I couldn't really associate myself with the flag itself, like, I associated myself with you guys, and so I saw what it meant to you guys, and I understand why a flag would mean that much to someone, and even now, even more after what you've told me, Hat. Like, if that would happen now, after what I know, I would feel what you felt, like 10 times more. I would have been heated, and I would have been ready to go. I probably would have initiated the fight and would have, like, tried to get it going, if anything. Like, knowing me back then, just being dumb, and like, I know that sometimes we can turn molehills into mountains, but I think that our friendship as a whole, it's 24 Down, is definitely an important mountain that is worthy of protection, and is worthy of the passion that we've given to it. So I see both sides of the story here. I love Phil and Alex. I love Jeremy. I don't know those other fools for real, but like, it was a good time, and I'm glad that we're able to just sit here and talk about it and just have a good laugh about it.
Yeah. I'm glad that, like, after having this conversation and like thinking about the experience more, I'm glad, one, that like this was like the peak of extremism for our school, like that we weren't in like frats like dragging nuts across each other and stuff. Like imagine how much more crap kids are going through, like with hazing and all this random stuff. Like, this was like the peak of our excitement, was just some like funny thing of some crazy dudes just making a video about us. But actually, in reference to that, I'm humbled that like that we had that much of an impact to people, that they wanted to, like, we should have been actually flattered that they're like, man, we're that noticed that people are gonna like steal something from our floor, take the time to take it out, burn it, edit it, pick the right music, go on our Facebooks, make a make a slideshow of things, like pull pictures from it. Like, that's humbling in itself. But like, I was thinking about it too. I was wondering if I had seen their video from the campus police prior to the flag burning thing, like their campus police video, I would have totally would have overlooked it all, because I would have been like, oh, this is just like another segment in their comedic world. Like this is like another, and it is to this day. And obviously hearing it from them that it was nothing, but it's just, I'm glad that we were a part of it, and it's funny. It's cool that we get to go over it all again and talk about how important it was and how unimportant it was and what came from it and what friends came from it and all that. And I'm glad that we didn't punch anyone over a flag.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys coming on, giving your perspective, and I love you. The 24 Down family loves you. So thank you guys again.
Love you too, guys.
Appreciate you, man. Love you.
So I think it shows, like I said to them, like it shows a level of maturity that a lot of us maybe didn't have, the fact that they could see past it. Now, granted, they didn't have the same attachment to the flag that I specifically had. So then they understood kind of where I was coming, and they probably understand, like everybody has their own things, but I just thought it was really unique that two guys on our floor had a indifferent feeling about it. Like they were passionate for us to be when we were passionate, but at the end of the day, like it wasn't that big of a deal to them, and they could see for what it was. And I respect them for that, to be honest.
Yeah, they really had a different point of view, and everyone definitely is entitled to their own point of view and how they take things. And so I'm never going to say they're wrong, but like compared to how I was feeling, it was just so different, man. I didn't help make the flag, but the thing was, it was like just a representation of us, man. It was like the symbol of 24 Down and what we stood for, our brotherhood. So, you come against our flag and you do all that. I know it's just a flag. I know it's just a piece of material, but it really did mean something to me. I understand where they're coming from, but it's so funny how, Rizzo, both of them, they were like, yo, man, they didn't really care much about the flag, but yo, they were there for 24 Down. So definitely it's not like they weren't part of 24 Down, because they definitely are. They are family. But it's like, it's such a different point of view that it kind of like took me aback a little bit. But you could definitely understand it. You can definitely understand it. So I definitely understand it. I just don't agree with it, man. Like I was just so much into it, man. So it really affected me in a big way, but love you guys still.
Yeah, it's their perspective is a true testament to 24 Down as a community, and one like underlying, fact of who we are. How they weren't even truly affected by it at all, and we're still ready to like throw hands for us because of how it affected us. And it affected me similar to you guys. I didn't have an attachment quite to the flag, but like similar to what you said, at one point, where it was like, you never were really a part of something like this, a brotherhood like this, a family like this. So that really got me thinking. That's like, it's true. You have high school, it's only a couple years or whatever, and all that stuff. Everything changes. But for this, it was like your first step into being an adult. You have like real adult friends, and we couldn't have asked for a better community and a better family that we have. And it's a true testament to hear them say that, like, they were like, it's just a flag. They were maybe a little more mature with their thinking and stuff and thought process. But the fact that they were up there with us, I remember Matthias was up there with us. He was like, I see how it affects you guys, and I'm ready to throw down. And that really is a true testament to like who we are as a 24 Down group, because like they weren't even sharing the same feelings that we were, but they were ready to back us up. They had our back.
Yeah, it reminds me of the McDonald's story where we just happened to hear that there may be this like fight that's about to go down where some of our own are involved, and it took not 2 minutes for a bunch of people to pile in cars and drive there. Like, had no idea what the backstory was, didn't matter. There was people of our own that like were in some sort of dealing with something, and we wanted to be there as a family. And I think, Francis, it's exactly the same thing. Like, they didn't necessarily feel the same way we felt, but as a family, they're going to mourn the way we're mourning, or they're going to support the way we needed to have the support and stuff like that. So yeah, all around, like, nothing but good things to say about those two guys for not only the way they handled things, but the way that they were able to kind of back us up regardless.
I do wish that I had similar mentality at the moment, because I mean I was definitely passionate, as most of us were, about that situation, because it's the first time being in that type of group setting. But part of me wishes that I shared that emotions with them, where it was just like, it's just a flag, just blow it off, go to Walmart and buy another $10 flag or whatever it is. I kind of wish I had that, but I don't regret the things that we did.
Oh man, I'm so happy. I was like all riled up and everything, and all heated and crap. Man, it makes for a great story. Like that's why I think more of us were like heated at it. But I think they may have been the only two that were really part of us that were not. We're like, oh, whatever, But that's cool though.
Nice. That's good. Well, so I want to do one last little one here. Interesting topic here with the fact that D-Shat was actually Josh Davies' roommate at the time that this happened. So I thought it'd be really cool to get some insight from D-Shat and maybe hear a different perspective and stuff. So we'll check that out now. All right, so we're here. I got Wolfie here, and we're sitting here because we want to get some different perspectives on this. And so we've invited D-Shat onto this portion of this episode. First and foremost, D-Shat, how's it going?
Super good, man. Super good.
Good. So what's interesting, and a big part of the reason I want D-Shat's input, and this is something I completely forgot about until he brought it up, was that D-Shat was actually roommates with Josh Davies at the time this happened, correct? It was at the time that it happened, you guys were roommates? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured,
freshman year.
I figured that D-Shat's got a lot of insight on the whole situation that maybe we don't even necessarily know about or have thought about yet or anything like that. So I guess first and foremost, the episode 1, you've listened to it. Is there anything you want to touch on from that episode?
Yeah. Because I remember there's they were talking about like the timeline of everything. And I definitely know it was my second semester freshman year that everything went down. I remember that mostly because it was my first year at school, but 2, I had the room we were in was directly above 117. That's like the main room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was directly above those guys. So that room up there was the biggest double in 24 up. So that's where I lived. And I remember when the flag incident happened that Josh got kicked out and I had the whole room to myself. And I was like, I had the biggest room in 24 up all to myself. So yeah, that happened. I want to say that was at least like a month, if not like 2 months. I had the whole thing to myself. So that's like, I know it was like closer to graduation. So maybe it was like a month towards everyone graduating in the end of the year. But but that's definitely when it happened. And yet he did get kicked out though. I think that was the thing they were wondering about, if he got kicked out. But he did, because I had my whole room to myself. So that's one huge thing that happened.
Okay, so we know he got kicked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Timeline, it was, again, so this was all based around us going and seeing 300,
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is Sparta.
So we went.
What's that, D-Shat?
What's that?
I think under the radar person who was associated with 24 Down that no one knew my name. So I never actually got the 300 thing.
So 300 came out in March, I believe, maybe late February, something like that. So it would make sense that, if he was kicked out shortly after that you had about a month or 2 in your room by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've pieced together, and maybe this will help, refresh some things. Maybe you can correct some things. But what I've kind of pieced together was that he's the only one that got kicked out as far as the flag burning situation. Everybody that was involved in burning the flag, he's the only one that got kicked out, but it wasn't because of burning the flag. And what it boiled down to was that um, there was enough evidence to know who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Talesha had done some stuff with the audio, and could clear as day hear, we could clear as day hear Davies and some other people. And so when everybody was approached about, hey, what's going on? Did they do this? From my knowledge, I think everybody either came clean or whatever, but like Josh Davies continued to lie about it and say, no, I wasn't involved. And so from my understanding, just piecing stuff together recently, was that the reason that he got kicked out was because he was given multiple chances to tell the truth and decided to lie.
Well, that was
I don't know.
Talesha's version of it too, which he talked about in his podcast.
Yes.
But he kind of kept extending, like, are you sure you don't think you were involved? Are you positive? And I don't think his voice, I mean, it was recognizable, but I think it was, even when it was still edited, and I think they put on like a deep filter or something like that, but his voice was just so distinct that it didn't matter how much they masked it. You were like, oh, that's Josh.
Yeah.
Well, that was a thing for sure. Is like that when it was completely masked, you knew it was Josh. His laugh was like very unique and one of a kind. So you heard the laugh.
Yeah.
The phrase that he uttered, which out of respect I won't bring up right now, just in case, whatever. But the phrase he uttered, it was whatever. That was something that like he was known to say. So it was like all signs pointed. And I think from my recollection, Mark was able to like do some editing to the audio portion of it, not the video portion, but the audio portion. Which here's a whole nother separate topic, which we could get into in a second. But when Mark did that, it definitely like you already knew it was Davies, but then it was like, okay, now you can actually hear that it is, So I don't know. What do you guys got? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. Well, no, there's something you just said. Oh shoot! I just lost my train of thought of it. No, I was going to say how I knew it was him because he has a very distinct voice, very distinct laugh, and again, like one of the common things that he would say was he would always say like, "Oh, 24 down." Those, whatever. He'd say that, but it was never really referring to the girls, from what I remember of like the way he talked about 24 down. What do you say about 24 down? You know what? Or the other term that he used was non-relationship whores, like, which is more, it was his jab at everyone who's like, oh, they all hang out with these girls all the time who are like, I don't know if he ever had like a crush on one, but it was like these cool girls, but like they're always with them all the time and no one's committed to anybody. It's just kind of like these girls just kind of like hanging on to these guys. These guys always have these girls along, but they're never committed. So he'd always be like, oh, there's 24 ounce, so they just like aren't appreciating the girls, or they're not committing to anybody. It's just like, I don't know, like that was like the frustration there, I guess, with like why he used that term. But from what I remember and like what I believe, like it was never really used directly at the girls or attacking them. It was like calling us like these, people who are just hanging with these girls and just not really doing anything with it. Like who knows if it's like a friends with benefits thing, or if it's just like we're just friends who just always hang out together. But as it was perceived, it's like, no one to make a commitment, like just kind of messing around or whatever. Like, I guess that was just the way that he perceived things and why he like used those terms. But from what I remember, that's like how he would use that, but never about like the girls as far as I knew.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Wolf, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I guess not with the intention of dragging his name through the mud or anything. This was 15 years ago now, like all this crap happened. I mean, even my wife's like, why is this such a story? Like it's a flag. It's like, it is. It was a story at that time, and it had to be there. It was, I mean, you didn't even have to be a part of 24 Down to be aware of the whole incident and everything. But I guess my question is, Dshat, and I was trying to remember too, because I hung out in your room all the time. That was probably, Josh probably left, and then there I was like, hey, like finally I can come over and sleep in D-Shat's room. That can be the real stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess like I can't remember like, and Phil and Alex talked about it too. Like there was like two individuals that were involved that it really was a more personal part of it to the flag burning, and they mentioned that it was Josh Davies, that it was something that he personally had against 24 Down. I don't know if that was more than kind of the comments like that. I don't really remember. I mean, I can tell you like as being part of 24 Down, like we're obnoxious and like in your face at times, and some people can't take that. So I don't know if maybe that was it or if there was an incident. I don't know. Anything you remember?
Yeah, I can't remember. And honestly, like, and it's hard. You guys know me. Like, I'm quick to always go to like, did I do something wrong? Like, did I say something? And like, I'm always like that. And even like listening to the flag burning episode, my mind kept going to, and again, like, well, I haven't mentioned it yet, but like, we've since like, talked and like we're friends now, Josh and I. But even then, like, I'm still listening to it. Like, shoot, like, I wonder if it was me. Like, I wonder if I like ever like did something to make him be like, or if it was like the fact that I preferred to not be in our room. Like, I didn't really hang out there too much. Like, him and I never really hung out more like enough, but instead I would choose to be downstairs with you guys, or I would always be like skating in the street or something like that rather than be in the room or hanging out with them. And I never know, like, I mean, listening to the episode, my mind did wander to, was it ever like a frustration with me, the fact like I chose you guys over my own roommate upstairs, which is never like a jab or anything like that, like, you're not good enough, I'm gonna chill down here. But I didn't know if that would ever have to do with it, or like, I know there's always like people who like, make comments with like, he would tell, we would always tell some stories sometimes, or we're just like, is that real? Is that not real? And we never could figure out like the man behind the myth, or like what part was true of his stories or what part weren't stories. And so maybe there's like that comes back to him. He's just like, people want to take jabs at the band I had that played Warped Tour or whatever else it was. And I don't know if it was over those things that were just like, we all know if those kind of like subtle jokes or whatever else, like maybe that tipped him over. But yeah, those are the only things I can ever like think of really. But it's just a bummer though, because every day is like, he's mad cool, but whenever something little would happen, like he'd have this serious like not like vendetta, but like oh man, I'm just annoyed at da 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 da. But yeah, I never know what specifically it was. He never really spoke up about it or anything like that. But so I can only speculate of like, is this a thing? Was this an issue? But those are definitely things that were present and definitely things that were there. But I don't think like him and our relationship had anything to do with that. But maybe like the story time kind of moments. And
I think it did.
So
I think it did, because everybody knows how mean and nasty and just awful you can be to people in chat. No, definitely. If anything, you would have tried to smooth things over and make it better. So we may never know.
Well, so I guess to me, one of the things that's really interesting about this whole thing, because again, I do agree with Phil and Alex that everybody involved in the flag, most everybody involved in the flag burning thing really did not care one way or another. They were doing it as a prank. And I do agree that there were two people that there was a vendetta of sorts, and that it was Josh Davies and I'm forgetting his name.
Joey.
David Cruz or whatever. But so what's interesting to me, I guess, a little bit is that prior to this, like Josh Davies was hanging out on 24 Down. He was hanging out with us, and not all the time, not nonstop or anything like that. But like, I think we looked at him as a part of the family as well. And obviously something went south somewhere along the lines. And I think for some people, it probably felt more personal. For Joey, it was like, okay, none of us really knew him. None of us really cared. If anything, we probably didn't like him for whatever college reasons. You don't like somebody, whatever. But like Josh, he was somebody that was around our floor. He was somebody that would, eat meals with us at the cafeteria occasionally, things like that. So I think it felt more personal, if that makes sense. And whether it actually was or wasn't, I think that feeling of, okay, why is this person that we've included, now turning around and like has something against us? Again, this is all just my perception of things. It could be very different, but I think that is an interesting fact. Is like you have two people that definitely have a vendetta. One, we're just like, you know what, I don't care about you, whatever. The other one, we're like, well, now we're more pissed because you were in some aspect part of this, you know.
It was a weekend full of betrayals. We got Josh Davies. We got Allie at the 300 movie. There was that weird mutilated guy in the 300 movie. Sorry.
I wonder if it's
yeah.
I wonder if it's ever something like when you're a part of something, but like you want to be more, or like
Sure.
you're expecting more validation, more credit. Like, you know, I remember being like part of like different groups in high school and being like, I wish these guys saw me more, or like took notice, or like made more of a point to say like, hey, I see you. You know, and sometimes when you don't, it's just like, are these people using me, or am I really part of this thing? Like, I mean, I've definitely felt like that in certain circles before, but you know, again, just speculating, but definitely felt like that before.
So I guess one other interesting aspect of this whole thing, and D-Shat, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. D-Shat mentioned this to me, I think last week or something like that, and he was like, he was wondering if the fact that it was known that we were going to 300 was because D-Shat and Davies were roommates, and D-Shat came with us and Davies didn't. Right. So D-Shat's like, am I like, should I out myself? Am I the reason that this all went down? Which I don't think is the case. To be honest, like we were all like,
again, me, am I the one to blame?
Right. And I don't think that's the case at all. What's that?
I legit thought that. Like as I was listening, like the cogs running in my head, and that's when I texted you. I'm like, dude, we were roommates. Like, what if like he heard me like be like, oh yeah, we're kind of going out to see 300 tonight, and I like spilled the beans there, and he was like, oh, and maybe took that and used it as the info, and like maybe I was the accidental mole, the accidental person who spilled the beans and stuff. But
I remember it was the weekend before. It was open dorm. I remember Allie was over in your room, and Allie and Davies were there, and you were like, guys, it's so cool. We're all going to go see 300 next weekend.
He knew I was slipping out though to go see it though. Just I don't know.
He would have had to know you were going to see it.
Yeah, right,
I feel like, I mean, half the campus knew that you guys, everybody was going.
Exactly. Now I do think that there's a possibility that he may have, maybe he reminded those guys because he knew you were gone and the whole floor was gone. Maybe he reminded, oh, hey guys, like, they all are all out. But I don't think there's anything that you need to feel like, oh man, I told him, and then like this is why. Like that's not the case. Everybody, it was the worst kept secret on Valley 4.
I probably told him. I have like the loudest mouth. I probably was just like, yeah, everybody's going to see it.
So there's one other thing that like I kind of want to bring up, and I don't know if you guys want to do any other little closing things here to close this out. D-Shat, I also want to give you just a chance to say whatever you want about the whole incident as a whole. But this is, I guess this is going to be my last thing, and then I will let you guys kind of close this out. But I was thinking about this earlier today, and with the whole Davies thing and everything like that, and it felt like it was a personal attack and all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm thinking about this, and how you guys are pretty close in age, right? If not the same age, you and Davies.
I'm pretty sure because we both came in like freshmen, like as freshmen, so we should be the same age, yeah.
So you guys were you guys probably weren't even 20 yet, right?
No, we came in like at least like 18.
Okay, so like I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, at the end of the day, here's a 18, 19-year-old college kid that just made a mistake, maybe, and how many of us make stupid mistakes at that age?
Yeah.
And at the time, like as a college kid ourselves at the time, it's easier to like build it all up and be like, yeah, like these people and these are our enemies and like go crazy and stuff like that. But I don't know if he'll ever hear this or not, but to me, I, you know, the invite is always on the table if he ever wants to come on, and if not, that's fine too. But like, I guess I'm trying to say that from my perspective, it's something that it was it was dumb college kids being dumb college kids. And I look and I guess I put that to some other people too. Like Colleen's gonna be upset at me for saying this, but Allie's another one. Allie was just a college kid. Like, are we really gonna like continue to hold a grudge against her all these years later? You know, this is like for me, this is a I guess big ones for me. Ty the snake, the one that turned us in. I mean, I've held a grudge against him for so many. Why am I doing that? Donovan, another person that I held a grudge against for years. Like, why am I doing? You know what? Like, honestly, like I would gladly sit down and talk to these guys and have conversations with them, and as an adult, like not hold stuff that they did when they were kids. Basically, like I've done stupid stuff that could be held against me. I wouldn't want that, you know. So I say all that to say, I guess, like if I want this episode to bring about some form of healing, if possible. As silly as it is that we're talking about this story from this many long years ago, but like realistically, I look at like for me, and maybe this is something I got to get over, but for me, it's a different story with Don Myers and Mortensen because those are not young kids making mistakes; those are guys in leadership. So it's harder for me to forgive that. Maybe I'll get there eventually, but you know, I look at all these relationships or whatever people that you meet in college and you hold these grudges against. And it's like, now I'm looking at this today and I'm like, why? Like, why? So I guess for me, Davies, you know, I didn't really know you that well, brother, if you're listening, but I don't hold anything against you today. And I apologize if we made you feel like, you know, you were in a position that you had to do that or whatever the case is. Like if there's anything I need to, like, call me out on it. I'll listen to it. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much, I guess, what I wanted to say on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Main thing I just want to like reiterate is like, it's funny. Like I look back on those like college days, like whenever we're like roommates together and then that incident happens and I'm just like, what the heck? And, you know, I was like everyone else, I was kind of surprised by the whole thing and didn't really know what to feel. Cause I'm being from like 24 up, I'm still feeling like, but I'm part of these guys. That whole thing happens and like fast forward a bit, like he came back to school. Maybe it might have been my senior year or junior year. I'm not sure, but it was at least 2 years had passed and he was like out of school and then he was allowed to come back. And from what I remember, like it wasn't even that he was cooked out for the flag burning thing. It was for the drinking thing also. That was like drinking that went into the whole flag burning thing. Supposedly that's how he got kicked out or why he got kicked out mostly, yeah. But even when he came back, like I'd say, oh, hey, what's up, man? Like we weren't like friends or anything like that. Because there's always that kind of like that awkwardness of we're roommates, but then that incident happened that was so huge and that kind of kept us from like really connecting. Fast forward, maybe, let's see, because I graduated in 2010. Fast forward at least until like 2017, when I'm right before when I was planning for the open door movement, like my little road trip around the country, and Davies reaches out and he's like, yo, dude, like I'm in Wyoming. Like if you need a church to speak at or need a place to crash, you can come out to Wyoming. And I think that was the first time that he had reached out or either of us really spoke since college. And again, like my one thought is like, man, we haven't talked since then. Like there's this thing that happened and then we're kind of like always just like awkwardness or weirdness. But I just want to point out, like, I mean, to this day, that I know that incident like shaped him. And like you said, it may have been like a dumb decision that an 18, 19-year-old kid made, but it really affected him big. I mean, it was almost like the wake up call he needed, that he was able to get his life like super on track. And there's a lot of like personal things in there too, but like that dude's doing so rad now. Like it's so cool seeing him like being in Wyoming and being like at his church and like doing ministry alongside of him was such an honorable thing. Like I was like, dude, like for us to still connect and like, and get along, to see him as a loving husband and a really good dad, like all his little kiddos, like that's just such a cool thing to see, that like that incident didn't like ruin his future. Like it changed his future, but now he's got this awesome family, like working these amazing churches. And now he's down here in Florida, and like, just texting him earlier about trying to go to Disney with him at some point. Cause like, dude, like I love the dude. Like he's a really great guy. And yeah, that one thing, I never want anyone to hold anything against anybody, but I just want to make sure everyone knows, like, dude, homie's like, he's got his life on track. Like that thing woke him up. And yeah, he's really changed things around. And but what I love about this podcast, like you said in a text earlier, it's like these conversations are meant to bring healing. And I wasn't gonna, me, I always try to find a way to preach, but there's two verses that come to mind. One is Luke 6:37. I'm pretty sure it's a reference that says, do not judge, you will not be judged. Do not condemn, you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. And there's so many times we can see a story from one side, and there's like the whole incident. It's like, if you knew Alex and Phil and you knew their side of the story, like you wouldn't maybe think the same way you did. And I love listening to that. And Alex and Phil, like, thank you guys for sharing. Like, dude, I feel like I could listen to Phil like all day. That dude's so charismatic. I'm about it. But yeah, it's like, dude, the more we just judge or assume things and like hold those things against somebody, like we're not doing any good. We're just causing more harm. Like we're not allowing God to come into our lives and give us peace, or even to give peace over to that other person. And but that verse is so powerful too, because it helps us to realize, like, dude, don't always hold those judgments. Don't always condemn those people. Like, dude, we all stand condemned. We all stand judged, and we got to forgive. But it all leads to, James says, confess your sins and you'll be healed. Like the times we actually get to say, confess your sins, and just like, dude, I looked at porn today, or, oh, like I did whatever kind of bad thing today. Like confess your sins is also like, dude, talk about your bitterness against somebody. Talk about the anger or frustration you have against somebody. Like talk about how you're holding like unforgiveness towards like that girl who broke your heart or whatever else it might be. It's like, dude, like share those things. Like don't keep holding guilt or holding whatever. It's like, actually talk to the person and say, hey man, like how can we be made right? And that's what you're encouraging us to do, man. So I applaud you with that hat. It's like, that's a powerful thing that people don't realize that we need in this world. It's humbling ourselves down to get honest with one another and have conversations that bring unity. And that's what 24 Down has always been, is a place of unity. And especially people who were once enemies are now friends, and now they're family. And that comes through having these conversations and stuff. And yeah, being willing to do the uncomfortable things, and yeah, and always admitting like our own faults or our own judgments that we may have wrongly placed on somebody. But anyway, I think that's my ramble soapbox of the night. So
couldn't have said it better herself. So all right, thanks, T-Shat.
Yeah,
Dude,
thanks, man.
Heck yeah.
So I think it's really interesting to hear that perspective. Somebody who lived with Josh Davies at the time. And for me, like when I was preparing to have that little sit down with D-Shat, like I said in the interview, like it just hit me at one point, like, why am I still holding a grudge against this kid 15 years later? Not only am I holding a 15-year-old grudge, but he was 18 years old at the time. You want to know how many things I did when I was 18, 19, 20, 25, 30 even, that like people could easily hold grudges against me for. So it's like, I really had to like check myself and be like, yeah, like at the end of the day, this is years and years removed. I was very hurt by everything that happened. I was fueled up, fired up like crazy at the time. But what's the point of holding on to that anymore? So I think that was my big takeaway from talking with D-Shat.
Yeah. Other than the Brazilians, given theirs, this was my other favorite one because You kind of got an inside look, and it was crazy that Deshat thought it was his fault. Maybe he was playing around, but he thought it was his fault that Davies did this. No, it was not your fault. We didn't even know you were roommates with this guy until recently. Like I know I didn't, and really what I think it is, and I could just be speculating, but from what I remember of Davies was that he was always the kid that was trying to be a part of something, and I feel like people kind of pushed him out. As 24 down, maybe we did embrace him a little bit, but I don't remember embracing him. I just remember him as this like annoying kid. He was a freshman, I think, at the time, and I was, a junior. So like, we would still hang out with younger guys, especially if they were part of 24 down. But like other guys, we didn't really, from other floors, we didn't really do that. And like I said, we were kind of prideful. And so, and this guy was always trying to do sports and stuff. And like I said, I would smash this guy. Me, Rick, Neil Monster. Okay. We were the linemen, and Justin Banks was a lineman as well. On the defensive side, we were smashing kids. We were just having our way with people. Like, there was a phrase called, pancaking. We would pancake people, and that's, putting them flat on their butts, on their backs, on the ground. And that's what we would try to do. And it wasn't because we wanted to do it against a specific person. We wanted to do that to every single team. So it didn't matter who you were, how big, how small you were, we were putting you on your butt. So that's what we tried to do. And so I did that so many times in one of the Patriot Bowl games. And what month did this happen? Did this happen in like what
It was March, I believe.
Okay.
And the Patriot Bowl was during the fall. So the Patriot Bowl was first.
Yeah, so definitely I abused this kid.
Do you think that he might have had malicious intent based on how you treated that football game?
Absolutely, because we not only had the Patriot Bowl, and the Patriot Bowl was all day, and it was just an all day tournament, and then we had underground, tackle games where he was playing also, and you would get murdered in those because those were tackle, and I'm saying like people would get hurt, and he probably got hurt. So I wasn't after him specifically. However, I was after him. If you're in front of me, I'm after you. I'm sorry, man. Like that's how I play, that's how I play. So, definitely he had a lot against us. Definitely. And I think that really played into it. And maybe he wanted to be part of us. I don't know if we allowed him to do that. I heard them say that he was sitting at our table. I don't even remember that. I wouldn't be one, and we wouldn't be one to say you can't sit here. We would never say that to anyone. If you wanted to be part of us, we will let you come in. But I don't know if we did anything like that to him. But definitely, I wasn't out to him personally, but I was out to anyone that was in front of me. That's how I played. That's how we played.
Yeah, that was. I can see how you came off or we came off as jerks in that. When we're so focused like that. But people don't understand that it's like passion disguised as jerkiness. Like you're not being a jerk, you're just passionate about winning, you're passionate about this team. And I do recall that he spent like a good chunk of his semester with us, because I think he was actually trying, and no one ever pushed him away, no one ever said like you can't be part of us or anything like that. And I do think that he probably had some of that malicious intent from you, which he took personally, he shouldn't have. But then I do remember that he lived upstairs with Deshat. I forgot until now, because I think I was in 117 when they were living above us, and he was like they were falling off the bed or something, and Andrew had to go up and like fight, make sure they were okay. And I think that's how we like really introduced ourselves to Deshat. But yeah, I think he might have had a fallout on top of that. I vaguely remember something happening with maybe one of the 24 down girls or something like that, where he was trying to talk to one, and they were hanging out with us a lot. So he kind of like maybe felt, some animosity between us, the group and him. But like at some point he just stopped, and then that happened. And so, I mean, it's cool to see Deshat's perspective, because I forgot until recently that they were roommates. And Deshat always finding a way to preach is awesome, because he's such a good dude, and I respect him so much to transform something as basic as this into a teaching moment. But yeah, I think you might be right. He might have taken things personally when maybe he shouldn't have. And that stinks, because I do remember him spending quite a bit of time with us. I actually think he might be in a couple of our dress up day pictures, I think, because there's a lot where we had a lot of like the other floors join in and stuff too with it. So he might have actually been in a couple of those pictures. I'm not entirely sure, but.
And I have to say,
And he,
I know Josh is going to say something, but real quick, like the jocks of 24 down, we were very prideful and we were jerks and
Yeah, you were passionate.
yeah, and you know, we just thought we were the best and stuff, and we could have been maybe a little better, but that helps you be like stay the best, I think.
there is an exception to that statement though, and that's Pete. Pete, I don't think has it in it. Pete was just as much of a jock as anybody else, but I don't think he had it in him to have that like confidence, cockiness. You know, Pete would be the one exception.
I would even say Francis would be number 2. Francis, you were mostly quiet, and so
For
we
sure.
didn't know if you were prideful or not. You were just good.
I mean, I'll take it. I mean, I'm a reserved person, so it is what it is. But another thing I just thought of, we as a floor, we were very united as one. We had a whole freaking 40 people, 50 people, including the girls and people off the floor. But another, like, we had like, I guess you could say like subgroups of us who like all fit in with each other in different ways. We had like people who were passionate about music. They were all doing music. We had people who were passionate about sports in different ways, basketball, dodgeball, whatever it was, video games. So we always had those niches, and it might be a possibility that he didn't quite fit into any of those little groups where we together we would have no problem with him. But like when we would go off to play video games and then the others would go off to make music or play basketball, he wasn't like into one of those. So it maybe separated him from us and maybe even others, who knows, from that type of thing. Because when we start to wind down, we start to do other things, and who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Josh said it in the piece that we just watched, I mean, and listened to, but I would actually like to say, because that him and even Brian Kroll, that's his name, right? Kroll, I think even Phil said it too, that he was part of 24 down before I came, I think, because
Okay.
I remember him being the guy when I was a freshman. He was making those 24 down hoodies, and he didn't even live on 24 down, so he was making those. And they had the crazy thing in the back of the hoodie, that it was pretty much a verse taken out of context, and so it wasn't a favorite of the 24 down. I mean, it wasn't a favorite of 24 down. It wasn't a favorite of, Valley Forge. Like, they didn't like it. They actually almost banned it, I think, or something, because it was just like, it was offensive. And so like, I didn't like him from the start. I know you worked with him, Josh. So like Kroll, I thought he was just like a kind of like a weasel kind of guy. And then Davies, I just thought, I'm sorry to say, and if he's watching this, I have something better to say after this, but I felt like he was an outcast, like you guys are saying, and I felt bad for him. But at the same time, my pride got too much of me to like actually be his friend or even like look out for him or anything, because I was too busy putting him in the ground. But now I would say, you know what, even for those guys, I don't even have to hear their stories, because sometimes in life, you just have to forgive. And I believe that's a Christian thing. I believe that's a concept that, even Jesus did, obviously, because he died on the cross before, millions, billions of us were even alive. So he died for us first, and he didn't even get to have a conversation with us. He just gave us that opportunity to have a better life, to have forgiveness, to have eternal life. So I'm going to say it right now, I forgive those guys, even though this is not a crazy offense. We thought it was a crazy offense, but it's just, we look at it as a prank now. It was a well thought out prank. Very good. You guys got us, and we were very, very upset, and we held these feelings for about 15 years. You got us, and that was a great prank, and we forgive you. I forgive you. We love you. And hey, man, we would love to have you on the podcast. We would love to hear your side and see what's going on in your life, because from what D-Shat said, you're doing pretty good, Josh Davies, and I thank God for that.
Yeah, that's gonna be like my last words kind of thing. Is if D-Shat's listening, contact him and see if maybe he wants to hop on, or if they even talk about what happened.
I know. Just being fully transparent here, both Talesha and D-Shat have reached out to Josh. He hasn't, and they both talked to him. He hasn't said yes, but I don't think he said flat out no. So who knows? Maybe this episode may help. Maybe it makes it worse. Who knows? But let me do one last thing here really quick, and then I'll give you guys a chance to say whatever you guys want. I'm gonna skip through some of our plugs, and I'll just plug the Store Frontier page with the t-shirts, storefrontier.com/24down. And most importantly, I think I want to just plug something that I just kind of teased a little bit earlier this week, and that is the birth of the 24 Down Network. This is going to be a place where you can hear multiple different podcasts with 24 Down members involved, different styles of podcasts. You can also, we're going to kind of branch out and try and do some stuff with Twitch, some streaming video games. I know Francis is going to be really involved with that. Tom with some music, things like that. And there's potential of maybe doing some YouTube series, like almost like a sitcom type of a thing. I'm trying to talk somebody into doing right now. We'll see if that happens. But there's going to be just different outlets, different things for people to create, get involved with, be a part of, and at the same time, keep us all close and keep us all going. So continue to look out for updates on that. I will do some sort of update little mini podcast here sometime soon, and we'll give some more details. But check that out as the details come out. I want to say to you both, like, again, thank you guys for coming on. I think it's very important for a lot of people to have a chance to give their thoughts on how this went down. You two specifically, both, this was a big event. As big as it was for me, it was big for you guys too. So it was very important for me to have you guys come on here as well. So I will let you guys kind of give your last thoughts, and then we will see you next time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was definitely something big back then. And I can even remember Carlos, man. I remember watching it, I believe, with Josh and Carlos in Carlos's RA room. I think that was us there. And I just like it actually brought Josh and Carlos together. Can you believe it, man? That's something that actually brought Josh and Carlos together. And I remember Carlos was like upset as Josh, maybe even more, and wanted to get these guys. He was like, yeah, we got to get these guys. And it was like, you know how Carlos was always trying to be the detective, man. And he was the detective. And I remember he was trying to go for people's throats for this, man. And he was I think he was excited when Davies got kicked out, man. And like, you know, he was trying to get all these guys, and we were trying to do the same thing. But just to think now as men, you know, and to think back, for someone to get kicked out of a college and have to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars just for doing a prank like that. You know what I mean? Even if it was malicious, it was just a prank. Even if you said sluts or whores or whatever you guys said to us, you know, it didn't warrant, you know, that type of punishment. It didn't even warrant a day of suspension. Maybe just sit down. Let's talk to you about this. You guys are going to get your butts whipped by about 50 people. So you better watch out. This is like the biggest floor on campus. They're like the best out of, you know, all Valley Forge history. So just watch out, because these guys will get you. And I remember Talesha talking to some of us and saying, hey, please just calm down. Don't do anything stupid. Okay. We don't want you guys to get in trouble. Yeah. So we didn't beat people up. We didn't like, you know, do stuff like that. So, you know, now looking back at it, I'm happy that we have more people part of the 24 Down family that were even part of that. And yeah, definitely it did bring us closer together. Even though we didn't need to be brought closer together, it still brought us closer together. And I'm happy we could still talk about it 15 years later, which is so funny. I know that the wives and the other people are like, you guys still talking about this stupid thing? Yeah, it was big to us back then. But definitely, like everyone was saying, water under the bridge. We love you guys. Every single one of you guys that were part of it. Hey man, we see the creativity in it, and hopefully you bring that creativity to 24 Down today. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm right there with you a little bit. I kind of, you know, as being someone who was suspended for something justifiable, I do kind of feel bad that the people who were punished for something that, looking back, seems seems kind of petty. But that was kind of like the reputation of the school in general, or at least some of the faculty. But then there was other people who weren't punished. I think Phil and Alex took no punishments, but it may have affected their stay at Valley Forge later with a different incident. So, I feel bad for them in that case and the others who actually were punished. So it stinks that it went down the way it did, but the way that 24 Down rebounded with the new people, with Alex and Phil and where everyone's at now, and the fact that we're still clearing the air over this situation, and after this it might even just be done. We might bring it up here and there, but like it's finally out in the air. Like Hat said earlier, it's really for some people to find some healing, and for people who like Phil and Alex who still think there might be some animosity between them and other 24 Down members. It's good for them because they might actually get that healing that they needed, as well as Davies. If he decides to listen to this, I hope that he does and gets some healing from it, because we all kind of feel bad that it went down the way that it did. But again, we were young and we were, whatever. Everyone makes mistakes. But again, I'm just glad to be on the podcast and be part of this group. And when I look back and look at the group of people we have, I can't help but feel like how lucky we are to be a part of it. Like, I could have been one floor over and never been a part of something like this in my life, and Valley Forge would have been a complete wash, because it was a complete wash except for the people that we found there and, well, my wife. But otherwise it would have been like a complete wash for me and others who didn't graduate or get anything from the school besides a huge debt. But just to think about like how easy it would have been for us to just not be a part of this is kind of eye-opening, because it's unreal to be a part of something like this. I'm like Andrew said it before, where he tells someone about how many of us are still in touch and what we're doing, and it like blows people away. It's the same thing I tell people at my work, like, listen to my podcast, and they're like, for what? And I'm like, college. And they're like, aren't you like old? And I'm like, it was 15 years ago, yes, but like, this is us. This is like what we do. This is how we're going to stay in touch. This is how we're going to stay together. Like, this is how close we were. We might have, some of us even wrote off 24 Down in the last 10 years or something, but like everyone's back basically now. And then that's where it needs to be. And looking back, I'm just so happy to be a part of something like that, because I'm quiet and reserved, like you said, so like I wouldn't be the one to go out and reach out to 24 Down if I wasn't already in the middle of it. So I'm just glad that Buddha, you reached out to me early on in my stay, and Andrew and Tom to invite me down to live with them. So like, I'm just truly, truly blessed to be a part of this friendship. And even seeing people these days, I saw Hat a couple weeks ago. It was freaking one of the best weekends in the last couple years that I've ever had. And I expect more of that with other people, and seeing more people, and who the heck is ready for this reunion? Like, who is ready? Because I can't stress enough how ready I am for this reunion. It needs to happen this year. I'm ready to throw money at it. I'm ready to like do what I have to do to make it happen and make it the best, because we got one shot at this, for another 10 years or so, and it's gonna happen. And I can't freaking wait. Like, honestly, I just can't wait.
And bro, we always have to end with the reunion, right? And I had a thought. I'm glad you brought it up, because, we want to cordially invite the flag burners from 15 years ago, or how many years ago it was. And we would like you to do a reenactment. Okay. So you need to study the video and make sure, just like they do Civil War reenactments and Revolutionary War reenactments, we are doing a flag burning reenactment. This is one of the biggest things that's ever happened in 24 Down history, and we need to reenact it. Okay, so burn that flag. Get your urine ready. Yes, we have the flag.
This one's off. No, this one's off limits.
we have to go to the same Kmart if it's still there. We don't know. Okay, Sears has closed down. Kmart has closed down, but we're going somewhere. Maybe Walmart. We'll get maybe a tiny bit better one. Okay, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. If they are not there, we have to get actors, okay, and we're doing it.
No, they definitely need to go there. I think the Burners and Mark Talesha need to group up and start to like talk it out. So it would be good to see everyone in person, and I'm so excited just for everyone to be there. I want freaking Dwayne there. I want freaking Matthias. I want everyone there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I have more details coming out about that too. We gotta
nail down a date for that.
Yeah, yeah. So it is going to happen, whether it's late 2021 or sometime in 2022. We'll see, but it is going to happen. So
I got my first COVID shot, man, the other day.
nice.
So I'll kiss all you guys, or I'll do you.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and we will talk to you guys next time.
All right.
All right, love you.